Okay. Yo, what up, guys? We are live. So we have a pretty fucking epic lineup for you today. We got Destiny, Michael Sartain, Andrew from the Crucible, Angela Knight, and Malik is going to be coming in a few minutes. I think it's going to be a really, really interesting debate. We have people who have vastly different opinions. And there's also one thing that's interesting about this panel is there's no like hardcore leftists. There's no like feminists or something like that. So it's going to be an interesting discussion. So the topic that most of you guys picked that you want to see this debate is patriarchy bad for men and women? The second topic that we will probably discuss will either be the male depression one or evolutionary psychology. But we're going to go for about 45 minutes to an hour. I'm going to be generally as hands-off as I possibly can. If one person is not able to speak or I feel someone's derailing, I will jump in. But again, I'm going to be mostly quiet. It's mostly going to be the people on the channel. Typically, the way we do this is we do a quick opening statement, nothing super crazy, just 1, 2, 3 minutes per person, and then it becomes open panel, and then you guys can go at it. So once again, the initial topic that we're going to first start off with is patriarchy bad for men and women? And you can have different opinion. You can be like, hey, it's bad for women, but it's good for men, or you can just say it's bad for both or whatever, and that's what's going to kick off the discussion. Okay, so without the way, let's get started. Angela, since you're first in the order, do you want to start or?
Yeah, sure. I will start. Yes, being that I was lastly introduced, I might as well go first. I do believe that the patriarchy has done its job. I don't believe that it's necessary for men or for women anymore. I believe that we live in a society. Oh, what's up, Malik? I do believe that the society that we live in now, it's just moving forward, and I think that we do need to focus on the evolution of men and women. So I don't really know how referring back to a blueprint that worked in the 1950s is going to be something that we can just, I don't know, progress. That's just me. So yeah.
Malik, let me really quickly explain to you. So the proposition we're discussing is patriarchy good or bad for men and women? So you can think it's good for men, bad for women. You can think it's bad for both. And we're just doing quick opening statements, about 1 or 2 minutes. And then after that, it's going to be open panel. And you guys are going to go at it. And in an hour, I will introduce a different topic. All right, Andrew.
Yeah, I think the patriarchy is awesome. It's good for men and women. It's also necessary. So it's a logical necessity. In order to maintain society, you have to use force. It doesn't matter if you're maintaining it at the law enforcement level or you're protecting it with a military. Men are the only ones really who are going to be able to maintain that force. Whether people want to believe that or not, it's true. And so, yes, patriarchy is not only necessary, but it's always going to be the default on every society everywhere on planet Earth at all times. And there's really not anything you're going to be able to do about it, no matter how much you push towards egalitarianism. It's still going to end up being patriarchal. And that's kind of a descriptive is. So it depends on how people want to define patriarchy, but from my perspective, yeah, I think patriarchy is not only good but necessary.
Okay, cool. Michael, you are up next.
Yeah, like Andrew said, it depends on how we define it. If it is the idea that men are going to take roles that require more physical strength or more assertiveness, then yes, by default, we're just going to be living in a patriarchy. If patriarchy means that there is a nefarious attempt specifically just to keep women down for the sake of keeping women down, I don't necessarily agree with that to the same extent. But if there is a patriarchy, one of the main victims of the patriarchy are going to be men who suffer from depression more, who commit suicide more, who die from accidents more. In those type of situations. So I actually think if there is a patriarchy, the victims of the patriarchy are, or the biggest victims of the patriarchy are low status men, whereas you'll have some women who are at the bottom who can marry their way out of the caste system that they're in, at whatever socioeconomic group they're in. Those men at the bottom rungs cannot. So that would be my argument in that case.
Yeah, Michael brought up a good point, is we all need to be kind of agreed in the definition of patriarchy. So just quickly Google this. We're going off Cambridge. A form of social organization in which fathers or other males, so males, control the family, tribe, or larger social unit, which would involve the government or society organized in this way. So that's kind of the general definition that I think we should work with. So basically, yeah, so that's kind of the gist of it. All right, anyway, I think next is Destiny.
Yeah, when you come to like really broad forms of societal organization, I think it's hard to say if it's like good or bad. There's definitely negative aspects of patriarchy. There's definitely positive aspects of patriarchy. I think that where we're at right now socially, I think it's kind of run its course. I don't think there's as many huge benefits to be seen for having like such a strict hierarchy on like men over women, especially as women continue to achieve highly in places like education and now increasingly more in the work environment. So I think we're probably ready for the next form of social organization that isn't strictly built around male hierarchy over female.
All right, Malik, you are up.
So I think women are worse at doing basically everything that men also can do. I think patriarchy is W's in chat. I think men are meant to be rulers and women are meant to be supporters and nurturers.
All
I know I'm
right,
sexist.
Malik.
Nice, Malik.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting combination, Andrew and Malik. All right, so now we're getting to the open panel parts. So you guys can just go at it. I will make sure the debate doesn't devolve or get too sidetracked, but it's going to be just you guys. So kick it off, whoever wants to.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
Go ahead, Andrew.
No, you can go ahead.
So one of the things that gets really annoying, and I know we have to do this on YouTube because we're trying to get views or whatever, but it's the idea of like, what is a high status man? And then the definition is so incredibly vague. We spend half an hour trying to figure out what that term means. It's the same kind of situation here. Like when I hear people complaining about a patriarchy, what I'm hearing is I am a victim because there is a nefarious attempt by men specifically to keep other people down. And so when I hear that, that is not the same definition as what I saw with that dictionary definition that Alex just read, which is the idea that, yes, men have 17 times as much testosterone genetically, heritably than women do. And so because of that, they're going to have bigger, stronger joints and muscles. They're going to be more aggressive. They're going to be the ones protecting the tribe, building the buildings. They're going to be the ones protecting the tribe from predators. They're going to be the ones out there procuring the resources. And so because of that, we're going to have a patriarchy by default. If the idea is like, for instance, that Barbie movie where the patriarchy is this basically this mechanism by which to keep all women down in every single case, I don't agree with that, and therefore those are two different discussions we're having. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I think it's important. So the definition I think we should work with is a system where the man is in charge of the family, social institutions, and ultimately the government, where men have control in that. Now, whether it's something that's like through force where women can't get in, I think that doesn't happen in reality right now. So there's no point even getting into that. But it's a system that's basically dominated by men. That's essentially the crux of it.
Yeah, I think the issue is that when we talk about like differences in testosterone and ability to defend people from like violence, these are like the least important things that exist in society today. Probably things like IQ or your ability to do well in school or work certain types of jobs are becoming increasingly more important. And these are arenas where women are at parity or slightly better or slightly worse than we're talking about with men in a lot of different circumstances. So the idea of building all of our society and our hierarchies around who can kill who with their bare fists probably isn't very relevant or effective in organizing society today.
Yeah, but Destiny, you would agree that we have to have an enforcement arm which enforces the laws of the nation, and that men are going to be the default for that enforcement arm, basically at all times.
Well, it depends. No, that's not even remotely true. No,
it is true.
It's not.
Okay, but demonstrate how it's not.
Can a judge be a woman?
Yeah, judges aren't the enforcement arm. The enforcement arm are the people who are going to be out there enforcing the law.
Okay, so judges are absolutely part of our enforcement. It's part of our criminal justice system. But you're saying that just the cops themselves might have to be men?
Let's back up.
Okay.
What does a judge enforce? So a judge will lay down, their judgment, but they're not enforcing the judgment themselves. Other people are doing that enforcement for them, right?
Okay, so if you're saying that at the end of the day, the people that apply physical violence might have to be men, if at the very end of that chain, then we can say that, but I still wouldn't organize an entire society around that.
Yeah, but it's going to be a necessity that society is organized around that. Because
why would it be? Why would we organize all of our society around one of the least important parts of our society?
That is about the most important part is the enforcement and defense of your society. I can't think of a more important part of society than the enforcement of its laws and the defense of its people. Can you?
I think that is a bare minimum threat. That's like saying the most important part of society is like access to food or water. I mean, while it's technically true,
Yeah.
that's not what's separating out like the great societies from the middling ones.
Well,
Right? I think that solving like enforcing crime is not a very complex problem. Now, solving the conditions for crime is complex, but just the enforcement mechanisms for, I guess, arresting people or holding people in prison is not the most pressing or important part of a country today.
wait a second.
how
The
about-
things which give nations the greatest amount of stability, especially as if they're a nation of laws and a nation of law and order, I would say that that's a pivotal, fundamental foundation for your nation to thrive. Like Somalia is not doing so hot, right? Places without law and order
Sure.
aren't doing
Okay,
so
so
hot.
let's
Hang
think
on,
of,
hang on, let
like-
me finish and then I'll kick it
Okay,
back
go ahead.
over. Same thing with the military. One of the reasons we're one of the most powerful nations on planet Earth and have such security is because we have such a massive national defense system. And yes, I think enforcement is pivotal to all societies everywhere at all times, regardless of their technology level or not.
If you're comparing like what country is more successful, Germany, France, the UK, Norway, Sweden, the United States, Canada, at any point in this conversation, is the enforcement mechanism for cracking people on the street ever entering the conversation?
Well, it's assumed. So these are baseline assumptions. So just because we assume that this is already kind of baked into the pie, so
Yeah.
therefore we're not talking about it, doesn't mean that it's not one of the most important fundamentals to that
That's
society.
what I mean. It's important, but it's fundamental and largely solved. That's not going to be, just like I said, for food and water. No one's going to say France is better than Germany because less people are starving to death. That's an assumed thing. That like things like distribution of food and water in most first world countries and a lot of third world countries has largely been figured out. So these aren't the things that we ought to be focusing on these days.
But I think that they are, because when those enforcement mechanisms begin to break down, like we saw with the BLM riots and things like this, society itself begins to shake apart at its core. So I do think that it is important that we do start to look at these things as these systems begin to break down. I mean, you were kind of on the forefront, for instance, with, I don't even know if I can say the name on YouTube, right? But with the whole thing that happened with the three guys and the dude with the AR, right? You were on the forefront of that. You
say
kind
Rittenhouse on YouTube?
I don't know if you can or you can't.
You
I
can
don't
say-
know what you can say on YouTube anymore.
You can say whatever you want on my channel.
Okay. So anyway, on the Rittenhouse thing, you were kind of at the forefront of that. You understand that in a nation of laws, when you have a breakdown of law and therefore enforcement, that defaults back to something that's more primitive, which then becomes males who are enforcing whatever their own law is. I mean, so I think that this is something that is pivotal and it is happening in society, and that's another helpful case for why the patriarchy is good.
I think Sartain wanted to say something, so let's just make sure he has a chance to say it.
So there are multiple facets, right? So if you take like a hierarchy of needs, if society is running properly, you don't need as much law enforcement. Like I had a buddy of mine say, laws are only, as Bradley, he was saying, laws are for people. If you have a society full of nothing but good men, you don't need laws. But the problem is, like, for instance, if I live and I have a nice day and all the thing I'm worried about is like buying a gift for my wife or taking my dog out to the park, and then all of a sudden somebody starts choking me, the most important thing in the world becomes air, right? Now, all of a sudden my priorities change to survival. I think Andrew's correct. If we get to a point where things break down, it's like, are the men who conduct the violence the most important parts of society? When you're Ukraine and Russia invades, then they become the most important part of society. During other parts of time, maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But my point is, I just so we can, play devil's advocate here, Destiny, let's just say that you're right, that it's the least important part of society. The testosterone argument was that men are going to be more assertive, and therefore, because they're going to be more assertive, they're going to have roles in, like, say, politics, as executives at different companies. They're just going to have those roles more. Like, I was in the U.S. military, and we tried to get as many female pilots in the U.S. military as possible. It was definitely an organized effort to do so, and there were still 8 or 9 times as many men as women pilot applicants, because men in those fields just had the proclivity to want to do those things. So that was my argument before, instead of saying, well, men are only there to just conduct violence. Men are also just more assertive and want jobs that deal with, like, problem solving as far as construction. Unless you think that that's not the case, that like maybe women would take those jobs if things were more egalitarian. I think men are more interested in being politicians. They're more interested in being firefighters. They're more interested in being construction workers. They're more interested in being in the infantry than women are.
I think in the most egalitarian society where everything has been 100% socially equalized, I think you'd probably still see a pretty big difference between the types of jobs that men and women choose.
Sure.
I wouldn't deny that. I don't know if I would consider that patriarchy at that point. But I mean, yeah, I mean,
but which goes back to my original argument. I don't think that's patriarchy. I think men being more assertive is just a function that leads to a society that we're in now, and it's not good or bad. It's just the way that it is, because we had two genders in the species, and one of the genders had to compete and had to protect the other gender, and therefore that's why we're bigger and stronger, and that's why we tend to be more assertive in our different roles in society.
Yeah, that could potentially be true. But I think the difference is that, like, do we have a society, like Michael says, where men just gravitate towards different jobs as women do? Yeah. Or do we have a society that Andrew wants where it's like women aren't allowed to go to school or something? You know, like, I think that's the difference.
Wait. When did I say that?
Aren't you opposed? I thought we had a debate once. Aren't you opposed to women having a college education?
No.
Okay, I'm mixing up with someone else then. Okay.
No,
but
not
some
only,
people,
hang on.
I think that was Nick.
And kind of the other thing to push back
on
that, so that you know, women have always traditionally done, since they've been allowed to go into education, they've always outperformed men. Always. They've always outperformed men from the educational standpoint. This has always been the case. At the college level and even pre-college level, they've always outperformed men. The reason for this is because it's more conducive for women. That type of setting's more conducive. There's far less rough play. There's far less, of this type of thing. But they pretty much always outperform men. So that's I'm kind of giving you that. But also, just so that you understand, and I kind of take issue with what Michael's saying here. What I'm talking about is a foundational level. So I'm saying there's an equalization of force which does not exist. So egalitarianism in itself, I think, is false anyway, because there is no such thing as an equalization of force between men and women. I think that necessarily you're always going to have patriarchy in one form or another, regardless of how much you try to push towards egalitarianism, because it's impossible not to, because of that equalization of force differential. And that equalization of force differential is so wide that a small core of men can basically overrule a large body of women, but the opposite can never be true.
Basically, I want to also let Angela and Malik get their words in, because they haven't literally said anything the whole debate. So, let's just go with Angela.
My biggest issue with Andrew is saying that we can't be in an egalitarian society. I think I guess, like, if you want to go off of like what you only know, saying that, men have always worked hard, they've been the laborers of America. But I think that if you look at the stats now, that men are no longer working and going to school. So I'm really curious as to how it can't be an egalitarian society if they're not putting in the work that they used to.
Well, because
exactly what are they doing?
Because it necessarily can't actually be equal, because there's no equalization of force. Women will always have to depend on men to enforce their rights, and they'll always have to depend on men to enforce their well-being. They'll always have to depend on men to make the enforcement for all of the things that they want and desire for themselves. They can't enforce those things on their own. They need men to enforce them for them. And men do not need women to enforce their own rights. They do not need women to enforce their own agendas. They don't need women for any of that. But women necessarily need men to do that for them.
Could I say it like this, maybe, Andrew? At the core fundamental, the basis of society, you need men willing to do violence in order to protect the rights of other people.
Well, it's not just that, though. So I want to be very clear with this. It's not just that you need to have aggressive men who are willing to conduct violence in order to keep a society together. It's that fundamentally women must depend on men to enforce their rights, period.
Got it.
Period. Got it. They have to. So egalitarianism, I think, even as a proposition, is false. I don't even think it's possible. I think from a foundational level, it's always going to be patriarchal due to this gap. And philosophers have talked about this for, basically 1,000 years. So have biblical theologians. And it's one of the huge gaps when you're talking about egalitarianism. How, for instance, Angela, how do you enforce your own personal rights absent men? Absent men collectively assisting you in doing that. How would you do that?
Well, I guess, like, in what state are we living in that we constantly need men?
Anywhere you want. Any imaginary place that you even
I'm living
can
in
think
America
of.
with this great citizenship that I have. I don't have to constantly live in fear that someone needs to enforce my rights. I'm living happily fine. So I'm just curious. So we continuously go back to that, and we say that men need to be there to protect us from what? Other men?
Yes.
Like, so is the issue is like other men beating on other men? So this goes back to like a men's issue.
Yes. So men give women rights and men give other men rights. That's correct.
Okay.
So because they're the enforcement arm, they are going to be the people who deliver rights to women or take rights away from women or deliver rights to men or take rights away from men. So men are always going to be the dominants in force, and so therefore they're always going to be the decider of who gets the rights. Can you
So
think of
why
an
are men
alternative
failing in
system?
this current? I'm sorry. So why are men failing in this current society?
They're
Then
not
if the
failing.
patriarchy, they're so failing.
How are they failing?
Yeah, but you
Dude,
just
that
said you were
rape-
safe, Angela. So I don't know that they're failing, right? I don't know if that's.
It's just right now we like the way that society works. We have a whole like it's men don't do anything. It's the massive institutions that we've created around our countries that ensure rights. You don't get rights from men. You get rights from the protections that the institutions of government have guaranteed you, right? There are men in all sorts of different countries, but the rights that women have afforded to them dramatically vary from country to country, regardless of what man is going to protect them. You know, you might have the strongest male defender ever in Afghanistan, but it doesn't mean you're going to college if you're a woman there. And also just when you compare country to country and you're looking for like, what are the most successful countries? It's not the ones with the most alpha men or the most manly men protecting the rights. It's generally you're looking for things like, do women have access to birth control and are they participating in the economy? So I don't know. It's just like, it's a very crude argument.
Well, there's a bunch of things that are kind of smuggled in there, right? So the first thing is kind of smuggled in is you talk about institutions being the protectors of rights. Institutions are just a coalition of people, individuals. They're going to rely on the enforcement arm also of men. You say it's not masculine men who are defending these rights. However, it is masculine men who are in the military, in law enforcement, things like this, who are the enforcement arm of these rights, who these government institutions rely heavily on in order to enforce what their will is. So it always does come down to enforcement.
Do you think then that the countries where women have the most rights are the countries with the most masculine, strong men?
So they're not mutually exclusive or non-exclusive.
I didn't say they're mutually exclusive. I'm asking because you make it sound like it's just strong men that grant rights. So does that mean that if I were to look at all the women's rights in the world,
there's a problem there? There's a smuggling again where you say strong masculine men are the only ones doing them. I'm just saying men is the default are the ones who are doing this.
Wait, but why you say men are the default? Like we can run that back a little bit more reductively. Shouldn't it be 6 feet or taller men? Like don't all men that are 5'8" and lower get their rights from men that are 6 feet and taller?
No.
Why not?
Because they don't have a non-equalization on force. A 5'8" person can defend themselves against a 6-foot person.
In general, do you think that's true?
I think that there are some advantages, but if you're going to do that, then on average,
no, not some advantages. I'm saying on average, if we look at combat sports with no weight classes, do you think 5'8" men are defending?
Well, hang on. So if we're going to use averages, then let's use averages and say that we have an average for a reason because most men are inside of that average, right? So if that's true, then most of the men who would be falling in these jobs are going to be within that average, Destiny. So
sure, but I'm just asking if we run this all the way back. So any man that's below the average height, any man that's 5'9" or lower, their rights are also being defended by men that are 6'2" and taller.
Well, no, that wouldn't be a direct correlate for equalization because men who are 6 foot, because men who are 6 foot, there's far fewer of them than men who are in the average aggregate. So therefore, the force equalization is different. However, if you're looking at the force differential from men to women, the average is so lopsided that even weak men can generally defend themselves fairly well against strong women.
If you want to do force equalization there, then shouldn't we be looking at people that prefer a heavily patriarchal society versus people that prefer a more egalitarian one? And the force equalization for women on the egalitarian one would be probably that most men would side with that over the ones that want the heavily patriarchal one?
Yeah, but that would go with my point, which is that men are the ones who are the rights givers.
But men aren't just the rights givers there, because a coalition of 5'9" and shorter men with women are probably going to defend rights more than a coalition of 6 foot plus alpha men.
But the distinction there is that you said it yourself. It would be a coalition of men and women, but it'll never be women. So it'll always have to be men.
And it'll never be 5'8" and lower men, I don't think,
no,
right?
It will always be. The default will always go to men. Men can always enforce their rights collectively.
Okay, so you just want to arbitrarily cut it off at just men, but not go into any of the delineations.
I just went into every delineation with you. Which one would you like to go into?
I mean, I already said it. I think that you could argue that like taller men are the ones that run society and shorter men only exist in society essentially at the behest of larger men, basically.
Yeah, but we just covered this. That's true. You could say that, but if you're looking at an average, then you're saying that the men who are outside of the average are fewer in number than the men who are in the average. So they're outnumbered. So I don't know what your point is.
I mean, it could be the slightly taller men could probably take on 1.5 shorter men. I'm sure we could find some average where 30% of men in society can run the other 70%.
And it's still men.
Like nobody looks at...
And it's still men.
Sure.
That's the point.
It is men, but now I'm going into height. But you want to go back on just the man, the fact that it's like the man thing. But again, and to go very broad, because now, I mean, I feel like we kind of see how ridiculous the argument is and just like saying, just men. I
haven't heard you refute it.
Broadly speaking, right, it's hard to refute because it's almost unfalsifiable because you're talking about half the population of the planet, right? Like, how am I supposed to refute that men
You
are
could-
important
well,
in guarding
here, I
rights?
can give you some ways- I
There
can
are
give you
no
some ways you
countries.
can
There are
refute
no
it.
countries that exist without men. But when I try to think of like, well, what's the refutation of this? Here would be an interesting thing. Do the countries with the strongest men have the most rights? Not really, no. In fact, just the opposite. I remember hearing so many jokes about how because Russia is so masculine and manly that all the trans Ukrainian soldiers were going to be getting murdered by the brave Russian soldiers. And here we've got drone operators, tossing grenades on Russian troops blowing themselves, right? So it doesn't seem to be the case that like just
So
strong men
wait
are
a
a
second.
predictor of rights.
So
in
hang
any
on, wait a
country.
second.
Go for it.
So men can take your rights away in those other countries too?
No, not just men. Those countries can take your rights away. You need a whole
Using the
institution.
enforcement arm of who? Which sex do you think's the enforcement arm?
Countries are powered by men and women. When the Soviet
Who do you
Union
think
beat
is the enforcement
Nazi
arm?
Germany, when the Soviet, it's not just about the enforcement arm. Who's giving them the arms to enforce?
Usually other men.
Who manufactures the guns? Who
The men.
manufactures?
Do you
Okay,
think that
so
there's
when-
female gun makers all over the world or what?
Yeah,
bro?
who do you think was working production in World War II when all of our men were going overseas?
They weren't designing the guns. They were literally on an assembly line putting a fucking screw in a fucking piece of metal. They weren't designing weapons. What world do
That's
you live
great.
in?
And at the end of the day, both jobs matter. You could be the best engineer in the world. If you don't have somebody building your shit, it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, that's
right?
nice. Women can be a labor force if men allow them to. That's
Sure.
fantastic.
And what I'm saying, you can say if men allow that, however you want to say it or whatever, but the reality is at the end of the day, it's not just men, right? You need both halves of society working together to actually fucking accomplish anything.
So
there is no society or country that's like,
you're smuggling
Okay,
in just
smuggling, yeah.
men again. You're smuggling in
Okay.
just men. What I'm saying to you specifically is that men are the enforcement arm, and nobody's building shit if men say no. That's what I'm saying. Women aren't going to be able to go to men and say, no, you know what? We're going to do it anyway if men don't want them to, Destiny. That's the distinction.
Well, I disagree with what you're saying because I understand what you're saying. It sounds great on paper, but if we again look at the stats right now, the suicide rates are up. Men are dying. Men aren't going to school. They've dropped out of school during COVID.
Yeah, but hold on, Angela. The point of the
7.2
patriarchy
go
wasn't
ahead.
to just do the point of the what do you say in the patriarchy? It wasn't that all men do better. Because I've heard this argument before. Yes, men are going to commit suicide more because there's men at the bottom of society that are not benefiting from this patriarchy. Right? Does that make sense? So I've heard the argument before of like the idea that men are suffering isn't really the reason why the patriarchy isn't working. It's like the point he's trying to make is Andrew's guys, tell me if I'm wrong here. Andrew's trying to say that the foundation of society, there are men who have to enforce and to take certain jobs that have to do with military, law enforcement, etc. And what Destiny is saying is that while that is a part of society and probably a more important part of society in the past, today it's a less important society because we have technology, because we have, someone who's a computer programmer, doesn't matter if they're a man or a woman, people can be successful entrepreneurs and be men or women. And I totally understand both parts of those. But my issue, the initial thing that I was saying before was that because men generally are more aggressive, they're going to fill more parts of that society, being entrepreneurs, being CEOs of companies, being in the U.S. military, being bodyguards, and stuff like that. So,
I think
so
that
I
follows.
go ahead, Angela. Sorry.
No, sorry.
Yeah, so I mean, I hear everything you guys are saying, but this all sounds like it's just like labor force jobs. But meanwhile, like the society is thriving off of multiple things that doesn't require you to just be like a fucking barbarian. So I don't understand why we continue to go back to the state of mind.
Because both things are important. Because both things
are important, but it's completely just highlighted the fact that it's only men. But if you really look at it, women are thriving in it. Women are working more. 7.2 million men aren't working. So what are those men doing that they're contributing to the patriarchy that's so important that men can't enforce those guys who aren't working, who aren't doing shit? So I'm confused.
Wait a
as to
second. Women
how.
are only able to work in modernity the way that they are because men maintain
Because
the
of
entirety
men.
of the infrastructure inside of every single nation on the planet. Women do not maintain infrastructure. Their top jobs are teaching, serving, things like this. They don't work in infrastructure. They don't work in paving the roads. They don't work with the air conditioners. They don't work with the electricity. They don't work with any of these things. At a very low scale do they work in any of these industries. The scales are so lopsided that you almost can just take the women out because they're so irrelevant to most of these industries. So the thing is I got to ask you, like you say women are doing all these great things. It's like they're all enabled by the patriarchal system, which literally has men competing with men, which we're supposed to be doing, and we love to do that, for status, for all of these different things. But the entirety of the world that you live in currently, that women are thriving in, all of it is maintained by men, and very little of it is maintained by women.
do you think that in a society without men, women couldn't do these things? Like you're picking
Yes.
the most, not to
Yes.
sound mean, but
Yes,
like
I
you're
think they
picking like the
couldn't.
bottom.
Yes.
These are the bottom men of society. These are the, not to be mean, but these are the bottom of the all men.
Electricians are the bottom of society. That's interesting.
Shout out
I'm
to the
sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry,
shout out
I'm
to
sorry.
the U.S. Army.
I'm sorry. Electricians are building the roads.
I said the infrastructure, and yes, they are building the
Engineers.
infrastructure.
Electricians are building the most, and also yes, electricians or trade jobs would go underneath college jobs. If you want to compare them to other
Why would they go
educated people.
underneath?
Let's let Malik get a word.
Why
in.
would they go
Wait, hold on.
underneath?
Well, they're underneath because they require less training and they pay less.
They don't require less training.
They, by definition, do
No,
require less training.
then show me the definition where college degree means less training than a trade degree.
Because typically trades are something that you can train into in a shorter period of time than a more specialized college degree level job.
In fact, to go from a journeyman to a master takes many, many, many years of training, Destiny.
A college, you're comparing a master. We're not talking about a 4-year degree grad holder as being a master. Who do you think makes more money, a master software engineer or a master electrician or carpenter?
Well, it depends on what the electrician is doing. If they're a master electrician, for instance, and they're working inside of a nuclear silo, I think that they're probably making a lot of fucking money.
Okay, if they're a master software engineer, their name is Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, he's going to make a lot of money, but
if you
that's an
want.
exception to the.
Now
Zuckerberg, does he have
I
a
know
college
it's an
degree?
exception.
Didn't he
So
drop out of college?
You're saying on exception, you think people in the trades make more money than people with college degrees?
If they're men, yeah, often they do. Yes, that's correct.
It's
Often
catching
they
up.
do. I'm
It's
asking on
definitely
average.
catching up. It's definitely catching up because what's happened is the labor force is not really there's a lot of men out there that are not working. And we had Waller on our show, Justin Waller, and he talks about like when he has union people that come on to work on some of his building sites, his construction sites, those guys, he would take those over a master's degree 100 times out of 100. Now, is that an exception? Is that everywhere?
Wait, over
Not
a master's
necessarily.
degree for what, doing construction work?
Let's let Malik just get one word in. She hasn't spoken.
Yeah, Malik, go ahead. Go ahead, Malik. Sorry.
So in regards to like women being in the workforce, I think Angela was the one who brought that up. Women literally would not be able to get to work, would not be able to work, would not be able to do anything if men didn't exist. Men built the roads that they drive on, men built the cars that they drive, men built the buildings that they work in. Most of the time their boss or their CEO is a man. Because men just do things better. And that's not even being sexist. That's just facts. Like if men didn't exist, women literally wouldn't even be able to work. So to even bring up the point like, oh, a lot of the workforce is women, that's irrelevant because every woman working could be replaced by a man. And yes, you could say the other around, but you're not going to see women paving the roads. You're not going to see women being civil engineers. You're not going to see women like doing it. I mean, they could, but they don't. They choose jobs that don't require degrees. They choose jobs that they can just be nurturers and supporters.
Aren't
Sometimes
women going
they
to
do.
school more than
Sometimes
men
they
now?
do.
What do you mean they choose jobs that don't require degrees?
The average woman,
but look at the industries they're in.
Okay, I guess nursing requires a degree, right? There's a lot of female nurses.
Mhm.
It's not,
Like,
it's not
a
a
lot
4-year
of-
degree sometimes, but yeah.
More women are
Yeah, but,
entering
like,
med school now than men.
A
Like
lot
I mean,
of women
it's
work
totally
in customer
changing.
support, work as secretaries, work as servers.
Yep.
Like
That's all
versus men
true.
who are civil engineers, who are architects. Architecture doesn't require degrees, it's a certificate, but women wouldn't be able to function without men. And I don't know how like
Men can't function without women. What are these weird
Yeah,
arguments
I
of
don't-
women?
I
Like,
don't-
what
I don't
world
know.
do you guys live in?
it's like both things. I don't know.
Well, when you
Well, I don't
say
think
when you
it's
say that
like,
though,
it's not a competition between the two sexes. Like I think when we speak
It's
about
not a
this is why-
competition,
but,
but I
but
think
you,
it's a-
but you make it sound like it because you continuously
No,
belittle women,
it's
and
an
then you say that we're
invalid
just
point.
and we're just like subjective to men in everything we do. And I'm just saying, why do we have to frame it in
She
that
does
way, and
belittle
as
women.
if that's the only like this Indian
because
giving
it's
idea
true.
that
Because
it's
it's
not
true. It is
And, like
true.
historically, men have given you these things, sure, but we're speaking in this time, and I'm saying that I don't believe that it's quite necessary. I don't understand how men are falling behind in society, yet still saying that we own the
Tell
world.
me
we
the
run world,
metrics
and the
that
beyond
Men are
you-
falling
is-
behind in
it doesn't make sense.
society because of this feminist
Because other
push
men
to
are
be
beating other men
equal,
down, telling
and
them
for
they
men
aren't
to
shit.
for men
Because
to
if you're not
embrace
6
their
feet tall,
femininity.
Because if you don't,
And-
if you're not 6 feet tall, if you don't make 6 figures, you're not shit. If you won't get a girl to submit to you, it doesn't make
No,
any
that's
sense.
the dumb red pill theory.
No,
of
because
these
you're saying
incel
that-
below average men
Because we're-
We'll let the
idolizing
women
above
fight for a
average
minute.
men that they'll never be. That's the non-existent
We'll let these
internet
broads
like
fight for a
mentality.
But
second
you're going
before
on
we
the
get back
speaking
to
point
sparring
that
with
this
Destiny.
is what women need to do, to just stay in the kitchen and just stay at home. So what do
I never
what-
said women should stay
so
in the
what
kitchen.
should
I think
women
women
do?
do pretty
By the
well
way,
in the
guys,
kitchen.
get those super
But I
chats
didn't say they
in.
should stay there. I
Get
think
those
women
super
should
chats
work.
in.
I think there's nothing wrong with that. But the fact that, like, in equal society, society is even possible, I just think that's crazy. Like, you can never have a society where both gender roles are not important in their own individual way.
Yeah, but that's different from what you said in the beginning. You're saying that women don't basically contribute to society. Basically, we can just stay at home. Is basically referring it to.
No, I said that women would not even be able to be in the workforce if it wasn't for all the work men have done.
Yeah, but men wouldn't
That's a
have kids
fact.
if it wasn't for women. Men wouldn't have meals if women didn't cook it. There's so many things that were complementary, but again, it's a the way that you're
What?
everything is a competition.
Men
between,
wouldn't
what men
have
and women
meals
do.
if women didn't cook them?
Isn't that why men want wives? Like, you guys would just be eating shit food all the time. I don't get it.
Men can't cook themselves healthy food?
Women can't build roads?
No, they can't. They're not even physically
Okay.
built
No,
to
they
do
can't.
it.
They're not physical. What do you think those jobs
Listen.
aren't you actually picking the road
Destiny.
up and putting it down?
You had
Most
Destiny.
of this shit, you have tools and stuff that you use.
Yeah,
What are
I
you
know.
talking
I
about?
know. Have you ever done one of those jobs?
I did. I was a
Okay.
fucking carpet cleaner. We did drywall
I'm saying
insulation.
this-
We did
Well,
water
great.
damage.
Then
tore a
let me
fucking basement.
notate.
Yeah,
Let
I
me
mean,
notate some differences for you. We have different skeletal structures.
Oh
Women
my
can't
God.
deal with the
Can we
heat.
just skip this? Yeah,
Women can't deal with the heat as well. They can't. They physiologically cannot do a lot of these jobs on average. Destiny.
The average construction job doesn't have to be outside in Phoenix in 120-degree
It
weather.
does if you're building a fucking road, Destiny.
Men take breaks when it's really hot outside.
Yeah.
You know that, right?
Yeah. And they're gonna have to
But do
work
you
in those
think-
conditions, right?
Again, the constant back and forth. Like, I'm trying to understand this, and maybe I don't get this, but if you guys were building roads and infrastructure and there weren't women, would you still be doing this shit? Would you just be living in huts and sleeping on futons? Again, it goes back to we do need each other. You guys do this shit for women. Women do shit for men. So again, it's egalitarian. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. That doesn't make sense.
Okay,
Wait,
but
is it
but in a
egalitarian or it's not
patriarchy-
egalitarian?
In a patriarchy, there's both men and women. The man's role is to be a leader, a guide, or whatever. And the woman's role is to nurture and support the man in a functioning patriarchy, correct?
Sure, but what is a man
Okay.
leading this day and age? I don't understand. If we're all
No, in
going-
an egalitarian society, they're exactly equal. There's no roles.
Yeah.
Women do the same shit men do.
yes,
So
I like
if
how
women
these
do the
shits
same
Yeah,
exact shit men
While
do,
Destiny's trying
So
to
you
formulate
have-
an argument.
you have all these
Like he's
labor
trying to
intensive,
come up
and
with
I've been
something.
saying
He's
this
like
as someone who
Googling
worked in
frantically
construction
to
for
get
4
me on
years.
something.
And as someone who's been in the blue collar and white collar fields, men just do it better. Men are faster at doing shit like that. They are physically built for that, versus women do so much better in a nurturing or supporting role in society. So
What
if-
did you do for construction for 4 years? I
yes,
wanna
women
know.
theoretically could.
Wait, I'm curious what
What
your
was
job
that?
was for what? Because no offense to anybody that works these jobs, but most people I knew were lazy as fuck. Okay, blue collar guys, or at least in the industries I worked in, are not running around like working super fucking hard. Blah blah. You're generally doing as little as you can to cash out as much as you can before the fucking somebody catches you jerking off or messing around or whatever. Like, it's not like these people are out here like fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger, like building entire fucking houses on their back. Like, what are we talking about right now?
Yeah, well, yeah, they are. And they
Okay,
are working
so-
hard. They're working long hours.
Yeah,
They're working
like-
60, 70 hours a week. They are hauling extraordinarily heavy things. Their work requirements for even basic factory work is very strenuous on the body. What the fuck are you talking about?
again, I think that
I
this
was
is
curious
a
what Malik's
no.
job was.
Yeah,
I don't know.
so
I don't think
I'm
I used to
actually
do work
gonna
with
use my
turbos,
experience
Andrew,
in the
but yeah.
construction industry.
You think that
I'm going to
installing
use my
it?
experience in the
wait,
construction industry, for example.
Are you
So
saying,
go ahead,
Destiny,
Andrew. I'll let you
that
finish.
are you saying that working on robotics and working on machines is not hard, difficult, strenuous work? Because it is.
I've never seen an industry where everybody is hardcore busting their ass like constantly on the
Not
shit they're
everybody,
doing.
of course not.
I'm pretty sure even the meme is that like if you drive around and you see people working on roads and shit, 95% of the drive you drive by, they're literally just fucking standing there. Now I know that's not happening all the time, okay?
Right.
But I'm pretty sure blue collar, white collar, most people are just trying to do the least amount of work they can to get by.
Well,
like,
let
that's
me
generally
concede
the case with most people.
a few points that I would agree that in basically anywhere you go, that there's a core group of people who tend to do more work than anybody else does. Okay, so I'll agree that that's true, but I don't think that takes away from the fact that yes, these jobs are difficult. They are strenuous on the body. They do require a lot of work, and people are working extremely long hours. And yeah, I do think that they're busting their ass, and I do think that from a physical standpoint, that women are not going to be doing logging and they're not going to be doing line work for power lines. And they physically, I don't think most of them are even capable of doing that. Can you meet me halfway here?
No, I think they can do the job.
Okay,
Might
then
be-
why,
might be on
then why
average-
don't they?
On average, because those jobs suck. And chances are, if you're part of a lower
So
class
men are
family,
just dumb?
J- The ones that do those jobs, Andrew, yes, they are.
No, they're not.
Yes, that's the whole point. Okay,
Why do you
sorry,
think
you're
they're
wrong.
dumb? Why
But
do
I
you
mean,
think that these people are dumb?
Because
the
the more
linemen are
successful-
dumb.
I know this is hard and offensive or whatever, or triggers you or whatever to hear it, but right now, society is oriented around high IQ workers tend to earn more money. If you were to take the collective IQ of people working in trades and compare them to people working white-collar jobs, the people working the white-collar jobs are smarter. Smarter men don't roof. Smarter men aren't doing power lines. Smarter men aren't doing construction. They're in fucking air-conditioned offices earning 2, 3, 4 times as much and take their family to Disney World twice a year.
You're talking about an amount of jobs which is minuscule and not even available to most human beings, let alone men.
What do you mean?
These are
There's been a
minuscule amount of jobs.
greater demand right now for middle class, for college educated workers in the United States than there probably ever has been in all of human history.
So backing up, that really doesn't negate what I'm saying, which is that there's still only a minuscule amount of these positions where you're earning $300,000+ a year for any human being on
No one is
earth.
talking about 300,000, earning 70,000.
Well, earning
a year.
$100,000 a year in a trade is not hard, Destiny.
You're wrong.
Yeah, I'm not wrong.
You don't earn on average 100,000 a year in
Well,
a trade. That's just not
if
true.
you take an average for a journeyman, I bet you it's around 50, 60 grand. And I guarantee you that anecdotally, at least, most tradesmen you talk to, because the hours they work, probably earning around 80 to 100K. Yeah.
Okay, if you want to go and work 2 jobs, you can do that as a white collar as well. I'm not going to compare people working 80 hours a week.
Well, this is part of the confines of the job requirement, though. You can't leave a line that's running because the fucking clock whistled. You might be able to do that in the white-collar world, but part of the job for maintaining these systems is keeping them up 24 hours a day. It's part of the requirement for it.
I just want to hear then I just want to hear your commitment. So you think that trade workers on average will out-earn degree workers? We'll say STEM degree, obviously not like an arts major or something.
You're just making shit up.
Wait. Okay, so you don't think they out earn them? Do you think people that work in the trades will out earn people on average that work in that get STEM degrees?
You're literally straw manning my argument. Repeat my argument. So I'll tell you what. Repeat my argument back. Repeat it back. I want to be good faith with you. Just repeat the argument back.
Can we try something here real quick, Destiny? So I think what the argument was is the college degree means less the more people that get college degrees, and so those men who get college degrees, not all of them are getting bachelor degree level work. I know I didn't. I got a college degree from UT Austin. I ended up managing a fucking strip club, or I was a DJ at a strip club afterwards. There were no jobs after 9/11s. So not necessarily what's happened is those people who work in trades, it's caught up because a lot of people who get college degrees aren't getting those jobs. Now, you're correct. If we're just talking about people who get master's degree levels jobs, then for sure they're making more money than trades. But what Andrew's saying is like not everyone has those jobs. It is not right.
There's an availability. There's a limited availability.
Only 26% of the population makes more than $100,000 a year.
Yeah. So we're not talking about just. I'm just saying that on average, a STEM degree person is going to earn more than on average a person working in the trades.
Yeah, but can you tie that into what that has to do with what we're talking about?
Because you said women don't want to work those jobs.
Right. They can. Well, no, I also said they can't physically do some of those jobs.
That's fine. That's fine. You said women don't want to, and I said that's true, but neither do men. In a lower class family that are working those jobs, where the IQs run lower, where the college education runs lower, somebody's going to be working those jobs. It's probably going to be the men, and the women are probably going to either be working a fucking service job or they're going to be staying at home taking care of the family.
Which of these jobs do you think are low IQ jobs?
Trades on average are probably going to skew lower IQ in terms of being capable than STEM related jobs.
Can you demonstrate that? I'm actually curious now.
Bro,
I don't
know. No. You're so fucking retarded and bad faith. You're going to sit here and pretend otherwise. Like that is like.
I'm actually curious now. Now I'm curious.
That's almost self-evidently going to be.
Why
true,
would that be self-evidently true?
Come on. I think, Andrew, if he's just talking about STEM, because remember before the discussion was college education. College education all across, I know some really stupid people that have bachelor's degrees. I don't necessarily think that's the case. But if Destiny is just specifically talking about science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, they probably do have, on average,
yeah, but there's overlap when you're talking about some of those jobs with what you would consider to be these infrastructure jobs. That's the problem that I have.
Correct.
So I want to know, what I want to know is like, if you're saying that somebody who gets a STEM degree, right, in nursing, for instance, right? Do you consider that STEM? I don't know. Do you consider that STEM?
Science, technology, probably, I guess.
I guess I would too. I don't think that nurses have a higher IQ than electricians do. I don't believe that shit.
They probably do.
Well, then let's find out. Like, I'm willing to be wrong, but I don't think they do.
Well,
at it.
I would jump in just to say
You
that
know,
maybe,
like I don't think so.
I would say maybe
I don't
they
think
do,
IQ
because I think that
matters.
it's all about how you make your money. And I think that if you're just going to use your back labor to work, I mean, how long could you really go before you feel like I'm making all this money and I'm depressed and life sucks, as opposed to someone who learns how to make their money a lot smarter because they have a higher IQ. So I don't think that you're actually arguing that in good faith when you say that you don't believe that. I mean, as somebody who has a background of working in the fucking nail industry, we make a lot of money. It's quite fucking miserable. My whole family makes a lot of money, but they're miserable. Me diving into a new space where I have to explore other parts of my brain other than just physical labor, I think that's different for me. But it's
Can you back
the
up
way
for
that we
me?
make money. It's just different. I think that it's
Just briefly, just so I just,
Sure.
and then I'll give you the floor back, right?
Sure.
But you said that you think I'm arguing what in bad faith?
because it seems like you're not trying to understand what he's trying to say. Because I believe that
I do
that's
understand.
why.
Do you want me to repeat it back?
Sure, repeat
That
it.
way you know that it's not in bad faith. So my argument, this has gone from a foundation for why it is that men are necessary in a patriarchy is necessary for enforcement, and the conversation graduated from there into what types of jobs men and women can even do, what they're even capable of doing. From there,
Alex, you want to share that?
From there, at this point, we're moving into, if you're talking about trades and you're talking about people in STEM fields, Destiny says that the people who are in trades have a lower IQ than people in STEM fields on average. Okay, I think that that might be true, but I also think that there might be overlap between these things when you're talking about the maintenance of society in some of these STEM fields. I don't see how what I said was bad faith at all.
Well, I think the biggest issue is like not understanding or being, I don't know, having enough common sense or to realize I think too much of anything is bad. I think if we're leaning too much and saying that somebody in STEMs is high IQ and they can just accomplish everything in life and they're happy making money and they're thriving in society.
Also, as just
I
a
think
real,
the
as an
argument-
ultra real quick, just because I'm Googling and a lot of people are typing in the chat, it seems like electricians are some of the highest IQ tradesmen, and their IQ is around 110, and it looks like nurses are like 116 to 120. So
Alex,
even
do you see
electricians, which
the
are the
chart I
highest
put
IQ of the tradesmen, it seems like nurses are higher.
There you go. There's a chart right there. So that's an
Okay.
IQ distribution by occupation right there. Yeah, definitely. By the way, some of the wealthiest people I know, most successful, work in sales, and some of them are not very high IQ. So we don't need to necessarily put like how much money you make directly in correlation with IQ. But yes,
Wait. No. We should, though. That's not fair to say, right? That's like saying, I think Andrew brought it up earlier, Zuckerberg dropped out of college. The average college dropout is not earning $50 billion a year.
Sure.
IQ and income in the United States and across all of the Western
They
world are gonna
generally
be
correlate.
No, not generally. They're highly correlated.
Yeah, but you
They're
brought up
ultra highly
Zuckerberg.
correlated.
You brought up Zuckerberg as an example of
That's
somebody
not
who
what
was
I- that's
highly
not what I said.
educated
That's
making
not fine.
money.
That's not because he is highly educated. He just didn't do it the conventional way.
Right.
Most college dropouts are not as smart as Mark Zuckerberg.
Right.
Just because you fail college,
You
because
brought
can't
up-
do remedial
you brought up
English
the exemption
doesn't
of
mean
the
that you're
rule.
highly educated. I'm sorry. Sure, that's fine. I'm just saying that in general, people that are working on the engineering or STEM side of things, even if we look at electricians, who do you think earns more money on average, an electrician or somebody that gets a degree in electrical engineering?
Somebody-
even you aren't.
somebody
you
who
aren't
gets a
even
de-
worker.
so-
Don't-
somebody
don't
who gets
you
a
literally have a
degree.
degree?
No, I don't have a degree.
You didn't get
I
a
don't
degree
know
in
why we're
mechanical
so
engineering?
focused-
No, nope, just by trade.
Oh,
I just
okay,
went
by
and
trade.
apprenticed. Yep.
I
What'd you
don't
say,
know
Molly?
why we're so focused on IQ
I have-
because
I-
I think
well,
that's
wait.
irrelevant.
Talking
I
about
guess
patriarchy
maybe I
at
have
some
the
point.
equivalency.
If someone's good,
I don't know.
but hold on, if someone's good at a blue collar job, if they're a professional at what they do, I don't think it fucking matters if they're bad at what someone else does. Like, if an engineer is insanely smart at engineering, that's great. They don't need to be knowledgeable on nursing or knowledgeable on construction or knowledgeable on AC or HVAC or shit like that. Like, I think that argument's like completely. If you're good at what you do, that's all that fucking matters at the end of the day. Like, if
Well,
you
I think that's a
choose your
really
role in
good point. I think
society
that's absolutely
and master
true.
that, then you stick to that.
Yeah, that's
And I
true.
think
Men and-
generally most women are better at doing certain things and most men are better at doing certain things. So why are women trying to do things that they're genetically not better at, and why are men trying to do women's roles that they're genetic? Yes, they can both can do either, but it's like if you suck at something and you're good at something else, like why do you choose to go out of your way and work harder
I think that's the
to
entire
be
point.
equal
That's
in
the
an
entire
industry that wasn't meant for you?
the entire point is that people should probably just be able to do and sort themselves into the jobs that they work best at. Not that all women should do this or all men should do Y.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, okay. Well, then we don't have an argument then. So
I felt like we're kind of searching
Sorry,
for an
I just
argument
ended
here.
the debate. We all agree now.
There we go. We all agree.
I don't think you guys all agree, but if you guys are done with this segment, we move on to the next one. Unless anyone has anything they want to add.
I think we got off the topic of patriarchy and started doing
we
which
did.
I think would be a great discussion to have a correlation of IQ and earning potential. I think that, or success in general. I think that would be a cool discussion at some other point.
Let's redirect back to the patriarchy and see if there's any disagreements left on that still.
Yeah, so I still think we got caught up into the weeds. I would still like Angela Knight or Destiny or either on your side to give a refutation of the equalization of power between men and women and how you think we're ever going to move past a patriarchy, knowing that there's never going to be an equalization of force. I literally don't understand that. I've thought about it for years.
It's like arguing in society, like which phenotype would be more suited to hunter gathering. It's just not really that relevant in terms of the most successful societies in the world right now.
How is it not relevant? It seems to be like it's the core placement that you're never going to be able to get away from.
Food and water are core placements, but they're not the big differentiator between the has and the has-nots right now, globally speaking.
Okay, so I think that's fair to say, but if I make the descriptive statement, it is true that we need water. It is true that we need food. It is true we build cities where there's water because there's water there. I can agree to all those things, but it also is true that men are the enforcement arm of basically all law and defense globally for everybody everywhere at all times. How is that ever going to move from a patriarchal system?
The enforcement arm is not that impressive, and it's not really the big differentiator between, like, there were enforcement arms in societies 10,000 years ago when we first planted our first weed things into the ground. So it's not really the big deal of what we're talking about today.
Destiny, do you think that it was more important, that enforcement arm, like say in the 1850s or the 1750s, and it's become less important as technology has advanced? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
How is it less important than it was in the 1700s?
I just want to get his full idea here. And so you think as we go further into the future, we may see a more egalitarian society because technology will take over some of those labor and defense functions that men have. Is that
because I think increasingly our society is becoming more geared around intelligence. Is basically what society is becoming increasingly geared around. Even the way we fight wars is more and more geared around high IQ people operating drones, operating aircraft, operating whatever. Yeah.
So your argument is, as we get further and further away from a survival scenario, we get more and more the possibility of egalitarianism is possible. My only argument to that is, again, men are still more assertive genetically than women, so I don't necessarily see that being the case.
Sure,
and Andrew, you don't agree with that. What?
I was going to say, it depends on when you say like egalitarian. I don't mean, like I said, even in a perfectly egalitarian society, men and women are probably still going to gravitate towards different jobs.
Exactly. That's exactly my point. And Andrew, your point, do you understand what he's saying is like, it was probably more important to have those men as enforcement arms and becomes progressively less important as the world.
Like, but I don't agree that that's true. That's the problem.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't actually agree that this is true. I think that fundamentally, you still are confined to the rules, right? And the rules are, in the end, not that might makes right, but might does make. Whether you think that it's moral or immoral, it does make. And fundamentally, everything for rights is going to come down to enforcement, and it's always going to come down to men enforcing them, giving them, gifting them, taking them away, this type of thing, regardless of the technology. We've had guns available to women for I don't know how long, okay? Long time, and the shooting industry has gravitated towards trying to train as many of them as possible because it's a huge market that they can pander to, et cetera, et cetera. They're still not very good with them. They're still, to this day, most women still don't know how to fucking use a gun. We're the shit. They really don't. Okay, and this is always going to be the case. Even the mechanism for using the gun, using like Destiny's semi-automatic Glock, right? I bet his wife has trouble cocking the slide. Most people's wives do. Again, this is like hyperbole, Destiny, but I'm just saying all of these things still require some fundamental strength to do. And no, I don't agree that technology is taking away from the fact that the equalization of force is not a possibility.
I think so. In Destiny's, like, as we get further and further away from a survival scenario, the possibility of equalization might be there, but it's not possible because men are still more assertive. Would that be a fair characterization?
No, I think it's more fundamental than that. But I think that you understand what I'm saying. But I just think it's even more. There's more of a grounding there in the presupposition, which is yes, they're more assertive, and I think that's part of why they're necessary towards the enforcement. But I think ultimately it really comes down to physical strength, bone density, structure, all of these different things. And that becomes the requirement for why there can't really be ever egalitarianism. I mean, you're always dealing with a force which is monumentally more powerful than you are.
Yeah, no, I still disagree with that. I think that it goes back to you just comparing it to the enforce of men with the physical strength. I think that in the society that we do live in and that the society we're moving towards, so it isn't just the physical strength. That I think it will be quite egalitarian. I think it will be like a 50-50. I think there is a sense of IQ, whoever you marry, a woman or whoever you're with. There's a complementary factor that isn't just sourced around just like physical strength. So I completely disagree.
You're talking about men choosing women because of their IQ?
Well, I just feel like if he's saying that it's just a physical strength as far as enforcing laws and rules.
No. So let's, Angela, just so we can make it clear. So let's
Sure.
just say assertiveness, aggressiveness, then there's like physical strength, right? These are all different things. You can still be assertive and aggressive and not be very physically strong. You can also be very physically strong and not assertive or aggressive. But my point is, men on average, because they have 17 times as much testosterone as women, on average, are going to be more assertive, right? They're going to step into situations. They're going to be more aggressive and they're going to be physically stronger. Therefore, as we get into like this blank slate society where anyone can have any job, men are still going to prefer having jobs in the infantry as engineers, and take certain jobs as far as politicians,
because their bodies
and
are
leaders
equipped
in
for
general.
it, right?
Yeah, because from an evolutionary standpoint, they're equipped for that. That's essentially what we're saying is, even though as we get further and further away from a survival scenario, the possibility of a woman taking more and more of these occupations exists. It still isn't going to happen on average because men are more aggressive and assertive.
Sure. I think that men are aggressive and assertive in many ways, evolutionary, sure. But I don't see them doing that if there's no reason to do it. If there's no one to do it for. I hate to say it. I know, Andrew, you disagree with me, but
They
I
do
think
it
that it's-
now. Men can collectively and do in nations. They
can.
just snap their fingers and women's rights are gone. They can't do shit.
Yeah, but half of them aren't even going to school or working. So
What does that have to do with anything I just said, Angela?
Meaning, why would they even join to go to the military and do
You're not listening to me. Listen very
Sure.
closely to what I'm saying.
Okay.
Men in nations, right this second as we speak, have just said collectively women have no rights and women can't do shit about that. You understand
Okay.
that?
Sure.
Okay, so that shows you that basically by the way, anywhere on planet Earth in history that this has ever happened where men collectively say you have no rights, women don't have any, and they can't do anything about it. The opposite is not true for men. Men can collectively say you have no more rights to another group of men, and those men can do something about that. Women can't.
Wait, what? What are you talking about? Men have oppressed other men throughout all of human
They
history.
have, but other men can collectively do something back. You can go back to Spartacus and the gladiator war with Rome, and you can go to all these different slave rebellions which happened. All of these things, which are men being oppressed by other men, and those men being able to fight back. There is no such example for women, ever.
Yeah, no, I believe we live in a democracy. I don't really see that happening. I don't see us regressing back in time. So I see an extreme hypothetical, but I don't see how that's realistic.
But if men decide we don't have a democracy anymore, we don't.
Yeah, and I don't.
But
think
if
that
women
they
decide
will.
we don't have a democracy anymore, and men decide we do, we still will. That's the distinction.
I don't think you can still have a democracy if half your society doesn't want to.
What are they going to
participate
do
anymore.
about it?
They could stop voting. They
Well,
could
right,
stop
but you
supporting
can-
men in a million different ways. What do you mean?
You could still have a democracy where only men were allowed to vote democratically. That would still be a democracy.
I guess in Andrew's world it would be. Okay.
No, in every world that would be. Why would
All right,
that
so,
not be a
here's another idea.
democracy?
What-
That makes no sense.
Democracy doesn't imply half your population for immutable characteristics aren't voting.
Yeah, well, democracy just implies that there's a democratic process. There's all sorts of people right now who can't vote. Children can't vote, Destiny. Are we not a real democracy?
I think that most people today, it's a cute example, I guess. Yeah, also dead people can't vote. It's a cute example, but I think that if we had a society where black people or Mexicans or people over a certain height weren't allowed to vote, I think people would question the integrity of that democracy.
Well, maybe,
You can
but that
pretend
wouldn't
otherwise,
make
but-
it not a democracy, is my
Okay,
point.
by definition, then, if you were to restrict voting to just people with the last name Kennedy, that would also be a type of democracy.
Yes, it
But
would. I agree.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Most people wouldn't.
If you had a nation that was based where all your laws are based on, the democratic rule and only X percentage of the population could vote. Let's say they had to do military service first, like Germany had that policy for a while. If you had to do X amount of military service in order to vote, would you say that that's not a real democracy?
I didn't even listen to what you said. I'm sorry. What?
I asked if you had to do military service in order to vote, which has been done in nations before, that's not a democracy?
We're getting way off.
No, I want to know the answer.
Although I think I
want
think
Destiny answer. I
think that
redirect.
in today's society, if we were to restrict voting just to people that were in the military, I think yes, I think people would question the integrity of our democracy. I think the democratic standards worldwide have evolved significantly since whatever year it was, where only military-going people could vote. Yes.
So that wouldn't be a real democracy to you.
Okay, wait, hang on. We're getting way off topic. I want to redirect this to the initial topic. I think Michael said he wants to say something, so go ahead, Michael.
No, I think again, I feel like I'm playing Reginald Denny here. The thing that Andrew's saying is that yes, before women had have suffrage in the United States, it was still a representative democracy here. And Destiny is saying the standards have evolved to where any normal liberal democracy should always allow women to vote. So both things can be true, but what he's saying is that the standards have changed now. And so even though Iraq, before we invaded in 1990 or in 2003, women weren't able to vote, they would still consider themselves a democracy, even though they weren't really a democracy.
Why wouldn't they have been a democracy?
Because in reality, Saddam Hussein was doctoring all of the votes.
Well, in that, okay, so in that instance, yeah, I agree. But let's say that it was legitimate, where it was just the men who were allowed to vote and not the women.
So
why would that not be a democracy? I don't understand.
No, I agree with you. So legitimately, let's say the 1700s and the 1800s of the United States, that would be a democracy where women were not able to vote.
Yeah, but it was a legitimate democracy.
Correct. But what Destiny is saying is now we've evolved as a society to where that's a standard to where we don't find that acceptable. And maybe you do find it. I mean, I've heard you say before.
Let's let Malik get a word in. She's been trying to talk for like a few minutes. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Malik.
No, I was just going to say, like, not
what
on
are these
the whole
people
democracy
fucking talking
topic,
about?
because I quite frankly think that's
It makes no sense. It's still a democracy. What?
When you can just look up the definition. But for those who believe in that an egalitarian society can function, if you think every man and every woman in the workforce today switched roles, would society be able to function as efficiently as it's functioning now? And I don't think it's functioning the most efficiently now, or would you see a genuine decrease in functionality of this, our society right now?
You would see a genuine decrease if you did any switch like that. If all black people and white people switched jobs, yes, you would see a decrease. If all Asian people, if all short people and tall people, if all Democrats and Republicans switched jobs, yeah, you would literally see a decrease in the efficient society. Yes, that is true.
So if you took a black nurse and a white nurse, or no, if you took a black person and a white person, right, they had different jobs, and you switched their jobs, forget about degrees. If you gave them the same degrees, the same education.
If you took all the nurses that lived in Detroit and swapped them with all the nurses that lived in Baltimore, you'd have an inefficiency. So any sort of change like that would cause a massive inefficiency.
Okay.
I don't necessarily think
so.
That
maybe.
But you're right. You're right. Listen, if all tank infantry commanders all of a sudden became women, would that cause an inefficiency? Yes.
Yes.
I certainly agree that would.
Forget about their intelligence stays
but at the same time,
hold
on. But at the same time, I flew with a few, 3 or 4 excellent female pilots, and I flew with the majority of the excellent pilots I flew with were men. That doesn't mean there aren't some women that were good pilots. There are some. There's some that are outside the standard deviation.
And I never said women can't do these things.
Right.
But to imply that a theoretical world where everyone is equal would function just as well as a world where it's a patriarchy.
Yeah, but Destiny's not arguing that.
I don't think anybody's arguing
that.
All right.
All right, guys.
My bad. I kind of got off topic with the whole democracy thing. I thought we were still disagreeing on that.
I think we should move on to the next topic. I'll give everyone closing thoughts. So just go ahead and take a minute or two, make your closing thoughts, and then move on to the next topic. I think the chat is saying that it's kind of becoming a little circular. So you want to start it off, Angela, since you're first in the order?
Yeah, I do believe that society is evolving and is changing, and like Malik said, you can make it whatever you want it to be, and everybody can do whatever job they're good at. And patriarchy sucks. So that's it.
Okay, Andrew.
Well, if patriarchy sucks, she certainly hasn't made a case for it tonight, and nobody else has either. They haven't even made a single argument for the dispute of the use of force whatsoever, or the foundation. Destiny made this bizarre claim it's not even that important to society. I made a compelling argument that's probably one of the most important key factors of society. Not only that, Angela's arguments were... Well, really, she didn't really have any arguments. It was just mostly women but women go to school and stuff, and it's like, well, that's nice
because,
that they
because
Wait, Angela, it's closing statements.
Sorry.
didn't interrupt yours,
Sorry.
but it's like.
Sorry.
It's like, oh, hey, women go to school and stuff, and girls are just rocking it. And it's like, well, that really doesn't tell very much of the story or the tale here. And the truth is that an egalitarian society is not possible, regardless of if you think that it requires 100% participation for it to be democracy or not. Egalitarianism is not a possibility. It's not ever going to happen. It's a pipe dream. It's a fantasy. And you can't move past the fact that the enforcement mechanism which is required is always going to be male, and it's always going to be predominantly male. So your rights are always going to come from men, whether you like it or not, Angela. So
Okay. Michael?
The original point was, as we move further and further away, like if we go back to like say the founding of our country, 1776, I think in that case men are going to have to perform laborious jobs. They're going to have to provide protection and security. In that case, you have a necessity for a patriarchy, and men are also more assertive, aggressive, and physically stronger. As we move further and further away from that agrarian society and further away from a survival scenario, women have the opportunity to step up in different places in the workplace. But even though they have the opportunity, in general, men are still going to have a lot of those jobs because they are genetically more aggressive, they're more assertive, and they're physically stronger. So even though we may live in a place where, like, again, there's this story I've read before, women in Sweden, where things are very, very egalitarian, are still looking for more masculine men.
I feel like
still, even though they have the ability to go and have as much
BPF
free sex as they want,
syndrome.
they still are looking, more and more of those women are looking to get married.
Really want to
Because our
engage with
genetics
me,
sort
because
of
when he
lead us
does, he
down
gets
this path.
fucked up real
And
bad.
so because of that,
That's
I
what I
still think
feel
men
like.
are going
Just
to
saying.
live, we're going to still live in a patriarchy because men
Literally
are more so.
feel like that's what's going on.
Okay, Destiny?
Nobody analyzes society this way. Nobody looks at countries this way. It's like so
Yes, they do.
unbelievably reductionist that it's like the point is bordering on unfalsifiable. I don't know if there's ever been a movement in all of human history where it was only men against only men and women, or only men. Like generally,
That's
men
not
and women,
even the
even when there
argument.
is a hierarchy, are working together to some extent. And the claim that like men could take all the rights from women and oppress them, and women can't.
And
It's
they
like,
can.
I
And
can't even.
do.
It's not even like I can point to other societies that didn't have women or had only women. It's just such
What
a
does that have
weird
to do
claim,
with
and nobody
anything? It's
measures
not a
the
weird
success
claim.
of any country. Well, you do measure the success of country
Not a
by
weird claim.
participation of different genders, and generally, it's as women participate more, especially economically and reproductively, meaning more reproductive rights. That's generally when those societies begin to thrive more. But yeah, I just think it's a funnily reductive way to analyze society.
Okay, and last up, Malik.
Malik.
True.
Malik, your time to shine.
Yeah, so I think patriarchy is the only possible way for a society to function efficiently. Yes, theoretically, women can do any job a man is doing, but
You really
I
didn't
don't see
say
why
shit.
they would want to when men can just do it better. And same with jobs that require nurturing and all that shit. Like women just do it
By the
better.
way,
So
beaten
why
cheeks.
should
I'll give you your
we
due and proper for that
have a society
massive
where
super chat soon.
we abolish
Thank you
gender
guys for sending all
roles
those super
and
chats in.
have people doing roles that they're
I
not
really
the
appreciate
best
it. It's
at,
what keeps the
when we
lights
could just
on,
have a
what
world
keeps
where people
these
do
types
things
of
they're good at.
conversations happening.
But yeah, I guess like theoretically, like women could do shit, men could do shit, but I just think that's stupid. And I do like that we're getting to a more progressive point where men are able to choose if they want to do a woman's job or a man's job. Yes, I
You
use
guys
this
having
term. If
fun
you're
yet?
offended, that's a you problem. And fuck, I forgot my last point. Oh yeah, but women only want to be masculine, and women only want to
Yeah, this Malik chick seems kind of
take on
based.
roles that are traditionally done by men.
This other guy,
until it's
Michael
shit
Sartain,
that they
he
don't
seems
want
kind
to
of
do.
based too.
Like women only want to
But
be
he seems like he's
masculine
too much of
when
a
they have the
peacekeeper.
option to. Women would
Too much
never
of a
want to get
peacekeeper.
drafted. Women would never want to
We
be
want blood for the
septic
blood
tank
god, right?
cleaners. Women would
Isn't that
never
what we want?
to
Blood for
do
the
the
blood god?
dirty, grungy work that they're gonna come home every day with a sore back because they've been carrying scaffolding all day up and down hills. Like women aren't gonna want to do that. Like men do that because if they don't do it, no one will. Like women only like doing that shit when they have the choice, I feel like.
All right.
And I
cool.
personally like being in the kitchen.
Personally.
All right. Anyway, let's move on to the next topic. This has actually got the most upvotes by far, so it seems like people really care about this. So this is the proposition. Male depression is an all-time high. Men are committing suicide in record numbers. Why is this happening, and what are potential solutions? And for this one, Yeah, I guess we'll do opening statements again. Angela, you can go. Let's keep it a minute or less, though. Let's keep it quick.
Wait, sorry, what was it again?
So I'll just repeat it. Male depression is an all-time high. Men are committing suicide in record numbers. Why is this happening? Like, why are men more depressed nowadays than they were? And what are some potential solutions?
I believe that the depression is at the all-time high because we're still heavily dependent on the patriarchy system for men to operate in the society where it isn't just fully functioning for them to just be back labor mammals, I guess. I believe that we don't teach men how to express themselves and how to navigate through the society we live in now, being that it's driven with technology, AIs, and all that crap, not just, I don't know, changing the oil rigs and all that stuff. There's no space that men are creating with each other to actually have solutions instead of just pandering to each other.
Okay, Andrew?
Well, that was the most absurd shit that I ever heard in my life. But other than that being completely absurd and making no sense whatsoever, I think that the reason that you see the male suicide rate so high, and by the way, you have to break this down a little bit better because there's actually demographics of males where the suicidality is much less than other demographics of males. So I think it has to be broken down this way. But generally, I think it's due to the fact that we've kind of moved more towards a gynocentric society. We've started to move this way. There's been kind of a great con that has been put on men's backs and that they're starting to recognize. But they've essentially been treated like shit for, I don't know, about 50 years or so. And you can see the kind of suicide numbers reflect this a bit. So as you're kind of looking at this scale and this arc, which has happened, you start to recognize that, you know, divorce is pitted against them. All of these different things are pitted against them. And then you have this really key fundamental factor, which is that nobody gives a shit about men, including other men. Now, we are competitive by nature. We're always going to be competitive by nature. And I would expect to see the suicidality of men be higher than it is for women. I would expect to see that due to that kind of ontological nature which we have. So I think that also another thing which people forget about in this conversation often is that men are just better at it. So when they take the final solution, they make sure it's final because they know how to use guns and things like this. They make sure that it's over, whereas women, when they make these attempts, they use pills, things that won't damage the face, all of these different types of things. So this is more than just a singular answer. This is more nuanced and it has complexity to it. So I'm happy to get into it.
Michael?
Yeah, Andrew took part of my point. So men and women, on average, do attempt suicide at similar rates. Now, when we're talking about 40-year-old men who are divorced, that's a much higher level. But men tend to commit suicide more because they use guns and ropes and balconies, and women
can't even kill yourself, right? Says
slitting
Dingo.
of the
That's
wrist
fucked up, bro. That's fucked up.
pills. I don't know if we can say this all this stuff
And
on
hilarious.
YouTube, but
and
hilarious.
Yeah, that tends to be the reason why. Now,
no,
going back
Angela,
to what you said before, I'm going to go back to my original.
It's because of the
patriarchy,
patriarchy,
as we get
Angela.
further and further, like the majority of the human experience, let's just say 300,000 years of human experience, has been humans in survival scenarios, and things that aided in survival would lead to rewarding, and things that were not aiding in survival would lead to, like, say, depression. As we get further and further away from a survival scenario, and we get our gratification from things that don't cause us to accomplish goals or don't accomplish us to move our bodies.
Rollo Tomasi,
we just sit
you're
there
on.
and, like, again,
$10.
I play a ton of video games, but play
I'll
video
take the
games,
bet.
watch pornography.
We'll find out
things
which
like
one of
that.
us is right.
As we get further
Rollo
and further away
Tomasi
from a survival
says for
scenario,
$10,
we're not accomplishing goals.
It's going to be
Thus,
he's
by
going to
not
bring up
accomplishing
toxic
those
masculinity.
goals,
If he
we get further and
does,
further
I'm paying
into
the $10.
depression.
I'll pay the
We get
$10
further and
live.
further away from our natural
Let's find
state,
out.
and that's why I believe the
Accepted,
increase in depression,
Rollo.
especially with men, is concerned, and that also men being zeroed out after divorce.
Destiny?
Yeah, I feel like men have a really hard time like sorting themselves out emotionally, especially later on in life. I think like the highest age for suicides, I think it's like the 40 to 60 demographic of, I think for white men are like the highest at risk. And I think a lot of the times is because it might be because they're divorced. It might be just because they're lonely, but like kids are out of the house. They don't have any friends. They don't know how to reach out to talk to anybody. And then men have a really hard time asking for help because I think like 40% of them say that it's like too embarrassing to do so, or that like they figured it out on their own and they don't want anybody to help them. So I think that men are kind of really in a rough shape when it comes to emotionally navigating the world. I don't know how we can blame it on feminism or anything else when it seems like men have always been predisposed towards higher suicidality than women, I believe. Yeah,
I mean,
seems
he's
like
right about that.
I go with that one.
Alec?
No toxic masculinity yet, but we still have a lot of debate to go.
Yeah, so ultimately,
I want my $10.
it's kind
Rolo.
of men's fault. Men
If he doesn't bring
don't
it up.
support other men. Men don't lend an open ear to other men when men are down. If
Just because I'm going to
a
put it on
man
a
goes
plaque
to
and say,
another
like,
man
Rolo
and
was
says,
wrong
like,
and I
hey,
was
I'm
right.
depressed, hey, I'm going through shit, it's
He says it's
fucking weak,
coming.
hit the gym. Like, pussy, soy boy, hit the gym. Like, get off
Oh,
of
man, this is a bad
Pornhub.
argument from
Like,
Malik.
and they don't, like, men don't help other men going
She
through
seems like
issues.
she has the right idea, but
because
she's not good at arguing
it hurts a man's ego to go to a woman who, and women often are supportive, but men almost never turn to a woman for emotional support because men have an ego issue. If men were more supportive to other men and men had less of a fucking ego, I think that men would be able to get the help they need. And in addition to that, Andrew brought up the point that, like, when men commit suicide versus women committing suicide, a lot of times men just do it better. Like, that sounds really fucked up to say, but it's true. And then the final point would be, why is it at record high
Point
numbers?
brought up by
you have
me,
social
of
media,
course.
you have all these red pilled shit and like all the social media shit where a depressed single man is at home, goes on his phone, is just scrolling through these billionaires with these supercars, with these models, and thinking, I will never have that. What is the point of living?
Like
no
women,
girl
not
wants
men.
me. I'm miserable. I'm fat. I'm overweight. I'm not fit. I will never be attracted like that. And they feel like there's no fucking hope. And they don't want to go to therapy because it's frowned upon. They don't want to reach out to their friends because they'll get bullied for it. I just think if men were more, I don't know, supportive to other men, I don't think we'd see that much of an issue. And I personally don't know what to do to change that.
You should have made the bet with Malik.
Like this for
on Malik, I think you ought to owe you $10.
Open panel, have at it, guys and girls.
Yeah, well, I guess that's one thing that women can do. We can emotionally express ourselves so we don't commit suicide first. So I guess we finally figured out what women are good at. So being.
Wait, what?
Yeah, because we sit here and say that men
be right
commit
back.
suicide and they're. Say it again, Malik.
No. This is a question for you. This was your statement.
I'm sorry, I heard
I'll
something.
be right back.
Yeah.
So,
you don't think that it's because women tend to like take pills and things like that are less effective than men?
No, I think at the end of the day, I think
what men will do is they'll literally put a weapon in their mouth and pull the trigger, so there's absolutely no chance that there's going to be a failure, and women don't try to do that. So I don't even understand this argument that you're making. Can you flesh it out for me?
My argument is that men don't at least speak about their issues. You don't talk about it. So what do? You go straight to action, which is you just want to commit the actual action of suicide. With women, we at least talk about it. We think about our kids. We think about our family. We think about.
Then why are they attempting it at the same rates and just men are more effective? That's the question. That's a big hole in your argument.
It's a cry for help. It's a cry for help.
Is it a cry for help, or is it because if you look at what undertakers and people like this say, women don't want to damage their face? There's a big thing with literally, I don't know why, but they don't actually want to damage their face when they have an open casket funeral, things like this. So they tend to not, and also because they don't usually own guns, they don't tend to utilize guns for suicide. Don't you think that's a better explanation?
I don't think that's it. This might sound mean. I wish I could find research to back this up, but like, if you're a woman and you take like 8 pills, I don't think you're trying to kill yourself. I think if you want to kill yourself, I think you'll kill yourself. I feel like it's more of a
disorder.
What?
Like borderline personality disorder, like cry for help.
Sure. Yeah. I think. I don't think that. I don't think that if you try to OD using pills, I don't think you're as committed to it as you could be. That's.
Yeah. So going back to men not expressing their emotions, they don't talk about it. They don't create spaces for it.
Angela, can I ask you a question? So a lot of the times, if you were to say, why is it these men are actually committing suicide, and you were to ask them, a lot of them, it's financially being zeroed out. So that's one of the things where if I'm in that situation and maybe I do want to talk about my feelings, it doesn't make the problem go away. And 86% of the time, primary care is given to the woman after a divorce.
This sounds like it's moving to toxic masculinity. I must admit, it does sound like
it's not saying that it's a justification for committing suicide.
It does sound like
a lot of times feelings don't have anything to do with it, and that's the reason why they would commit suicide. It's not necessarily that they're not talking about their feelings enough. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
that just might be an alternate hypothesis rather than just.
Wait. Hold on, real quick. Your example kind of defeated itself because you're saying that the reason why women don't commit suicide as much after divorce is because so many people console them. So it seems like it literally is because of their feelings. No.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, women aren't committing suicide because they're getting financially zeroed out. Because the acquisition of resources
He's
maybe
trapped.
means something different to them. I don't know. Like I think for a man, he kind of comes to the
I'll see if I
realization is
can't
like
bail him
my
out, though.
value and my worth throughout my entire life. And by the way, I'm not saying this
Wait
is
for
right.
the opening and I'll bail
comes
him
from
out.
how much I can produce and how productive I am. And so now I've lost all that. Maybe a lot of suicides happened after the crash of 2000, the crash of 08. You saw an increase in the number of suicides then. And then additionally, with men are being awarded or women are being awarded custody 1.5 standard deviations about 86% of the time, then that would mean that they're far likely to suffer from the depression, or if they're the ones with primary custody, far less likely to commit suicide when they're the primary caregiver of a child. So that's
Yeah,
Sure, but I mean,
let me just to kind of put things in perspective. So men have always historically committed suicide a little bit more than women, right? But as you can see, it was pretty close. And then in the 60s, 70s, something started to happen.
Bring
where
up
women's
toxic
suicide rate
masculinity.
stayed the same, and men.
I want to win the
skyrocketed,
fucking bet.
right? So one of the things we're discussing is what.
But it is
exactly
moving
happened.
towards that.
What caused the suicide
Started
rate
voting.
for men to just go through the roof? All right, anyway,
Here, I'll
you were
just
saying
refine the
something?
bet. If somebody mentions toxic masculinity, I'll pay the bet. I'll pay the bet.
I was responding to something that
I'll pay the bet.
that was being said. But now we just said that. I don't know what happened.
Uh,
I was responding to something Michael said. I don't remember what I was responding to though.
Oh,
Uh,
feelings.
they were
talking
yeah.
about feelings and not committing suicide.
yeah.
Oh
so,
yeah, I think yeah. I was gonna say
No,
like
go ahead.
a guy that gets divorced shouldn't kill himself, right? There's probably some level of
course.
counseling or therapy that could help there. I don't think that's like an inevitability that like if you
Sure.
get divorced you have to kill yourself. But I think that women have an easier time asking for help versus men. Yeah,
Yeah.
But that's
so,
men's fault.
that's why.
Yeah.
That's men's fault. Like
I mean,
Okay.
could that-
women
Alex,
have an
Alex,
easier
Alex,
time asking for help. Because if a woman goes to another woman and says, "Hey, I'm depressed, I'm suicidal, whatever," that woman will typically listen and offer whatever support they can, or encourage their friend to get help, even if it's a fucking stranger. If a man goes to another man and
Shit.
expresses he's mentally not
Shit.
okay,
It's going to go to toxic
9 out
masculinity.
of
I
10
think Lolo's
times
right.
he's going to be made fun of and bullied for it,
No,
which
no,
is
That's where
only
we're
going to
at.
make him worse.
That's where we're
Hold on.
at. Fuck.
Alex, have you done this, Destiny? Have you guys ever talked to a friend of yours from committing suicide? I've
This
hundreds
is-
of times.
This is really rough, and I think we're bad at this. That's a really bad question for me, actually. Thank you.
Destiny's told his
Um,
friends to kill themselves when they've told him they're
Well, not actually, but even I would say, Michael, I think you, me, and Alex are probably bad for this because if I had to guess, probably most men like over the age of 30 are going to take those conversations really seriously. I don't know how seriously they're going to take those conversations in high school, you know? Like, I think that if you're a guy over 25 or 30 and you bully your friends, you are legitimately a sociopathic piece of shit who should have your like throat cut. But if you're a guy that bullies your friends and you're in high school, you're probably like a normal dude, you know? Whereas I don't know if that same like level of vitriol even towards friends, I feel like it's probably enforced more by men at an earlier age. I could be wrong on that, but that's like just a guess. My hope is that like any
Why
guy
is
over
that
30,
normal
yeah,
for men?
because that's how we
Like,
play.
I-
That's what we do with each other. Like even look at like guys.
Well, that's-
yeah, I mean,
He's
yeah.
right about that. It is.
That's why the depression and suicide rates are higher. Like I said, it's a man's problem. Like
Sounds like
Men need
you're
to
making an
stop
argument for
encouraging-
toxic masculinity, Malik.
True.
it is toxic masculinity. Like
Hey.
When did Malik
I-
become a
I
progressive?
have 7
during
brothers.
this call?
I have
Couldn't help
7
it, Rolo.
brothers,
I couldn't help
and
it.
I'm
I know it
very
lost
close
me the
with all of them,
bet,
so I
but I had to.
barely am
I had
familiar
to.
with how men think and their mindsets.
I
towards
had to
things.
do it.
And so many men are just so quick to just attack someone for being either down or lesser than society expects. And it's like I never see men like, okay, sometimes you see it, but like the majority of the time when a man is
But she
down,
agreed to
other
it.
men, because they're competitive by nature, they will try to get higher up and leave that man in the dirt or push them even lower to get higher up in life. Like men don't
Yeah, but Malik isn't
want to
part.
like all win together.
But isn't part of the stoic nature of men and all of that hazing that also leads to a quality that nobody talks about, which is bravery. Couldn't it be
No, it
possible? Couldn't it be possible that some of this could be accounted for with the fact that men will actually follow through with this because they're braver than women?
I think the
I don't think
deeper
there's anything
issue-
brave. Hold on, Roger. I don't think there's anything
Wait,
brave
like
about
the
committing
suicide?
suicide.
Like, you're
no,
taking-
I don't think that's bravery.
Wait, I think suicide
You don't.
is the
Well,
most
you don't
cowardly
think.
thing you can do.
Okay.
I don't think
Well, these are
bravery
nice.
has anything
Hang
to
on,
do
hang on.
with
These are
suicide.
nice platitudes, but most people don't lean towards self-termination, and there has to be some kind of aspect of follow through to actually do that. Now, you can make the argument it's mental illness or any number of different things. Fine. But could there be an aspect that part of this hazing and part of the kind of stoic nature, which is men, would lead them to do this just because they have the follow through to do so, whereas women don't
there's
seem to?
Okay, I personally will never excuse suicide or try to make justification for it. Suicide is quitting. It's giving up on life. It's throwing in the
Has nothing
towel.
to do with
It's
anything.
being a coward and
Literally
it's
has
being
nothing to do with anything. This
person
is
to
just
everyone
fucking
in
virtue
your life.
signaling. I don't care
It's
about this at
literally
all.
one of the worst things you
Who
can
cares?
do. So I think that I don't know, trying to justify like why the reason
So
they're killing
Malik,
themselves-
when samurais did seppuku and they like opened their bow, killed themselves for their
Why
lord,
would you
don't think
compare
that
this
was
to
bravery?
just no, bro? Don't even answer that question. That's such a stupid comparison.
He doesn't want to say hi.
Why?
Well,
Why is that a bad
okay.
comparison? They're killing
Because
themselves.
Kylie
committing
wanted to say hi to you,
because
Destiny.
ritual suicide killing for the honor of your fucking chiefdom or whatever is different than somebody that's like depressed and hopeless and kill themselves because they have nothing else in life going on.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at the suicidality in Japan, you're going to chop that up to cultural distinction of them wanting to keep their honor intact, right?
I'm sorry, you think people in Japan that commit suicide are doing it because they view it as seppuku?
No, I'm agreeing with you that there's at least some type of cultural distinction which leads them to think that there's at least some kind of honor that's kept intact by their suicide, be it some shame that they brought on their family, right?
Andrew,
I don't agree.
you're literally
Well,
like, to some
what
degree,
do you
like,
think the
idolizing the act of
distinction?
committing
Well, what do you
suicide.
think the distinction is, and why do you think that there's such a high suicidality rate there?
Because they have all
It's
the
not
things that-
masculine. It's not brave. It's not anything positive.
Yeah,
to
I don't
commit
care about the
suicide.
virtue
Like, what the
signaling. I'm
fuck
just
are you
asking
saying?
basic logic questions.
Because I'm pretty sure, don't they have a whole bunch more predictors for things for why people would want to kill themselves? Their psychological and mental health is worse. They stay together with their parents longer. They don't move out as quickly. Their job prospects aren't as good. They're lonely. They don't like men don't know how to talk to women or get dates. Like they're very like isolated emotionally from each other. They don't go out and talk to each other much. Like, aren't these all things that are big predictors?
Yes,
of society?
but there's
Like,
also the predictor of honor. There's an honorific which is there, and a lot
I'm
of
sorry.
times,
Show me that. Show
and
me
a lot
that,
of times,
Andrew. Where's the
well,
honorific?
I actually can. There's left behind in suicide notes. They brought shame to their family. Sometimes just for something as simple as not graduating high school, which are endlessly shamed for in society for doing. It's part of the honor culture which is there. You don't think that it takes some amount of follow through for the culture or some amount of bravery to do this? I think that, yeah, well, I think it does ultimately. Yeah, I think it does. Now, I'm not saying that it's optimal. I think it should be discouraged at every turn, but I think it's silly to think that men can outperform women on being able to, in their own life, if you didn't bring in that they had some kind of follow through that women didn't have on this.
I think that it all boils down to communication. And we talk about like the aftermath of what men do after divorces. I think that we don't talk about how to prevent these issues as far as like the lack of communication leading up to the divorce as to why he felt like he needed to put a gun in his mouth and end his life. I mean, men don't communicate their emotions. And Michael, you said earlier,
So here's the distinction, actually, because Destiny asked. And the distinction is the studies that I'm looking at show that in the West, it's divorce and family court for men, which is the number one kind of cited reason for these deaths, but not in Japan. That's not the case in Japan. They're not
because
citing
they're not even
the
getting
divorce.
married. But keep in mind that it could be the same reason, right? So firstly, it's hard to figure out a reason for suicide because a guy that kills himself can't really tell you why he did it, right?
They leave notes.
Now we can look at like attempted suicide. But however, when you say divorce or marriage court or whatever, are they killing themselves because they got divorced, or are they killing themselves because they're alone and they have nobody to talk to or be with?
Well, I think...
So, so in Japan, when you kill yourself because you can't even get out of the house to find a significant other, or you're lonely your whole life, a guy that hasn't even been married might kill himself for the exact same reason a divorced man kills himself.
It's possible, but the thing is like, let's look at these distinguishing factors here. You would agree with me that we have two very distinct societies between Western society and Japanese society. When you're looking at these types of distinctions, if you're looking at the studies showing divorce, family court, and the citations there, and we also have the suicide notes left behind, I think that we can make a distinction here, that there are cultural distinctions for why people do this. And this does seem to allude to the evidence that here the depression comes maybe from loneliness and things like that, as opposed to shame where it might come in other demographic areas. That's what I'm saying. So
okay, it doesn't, but the cultural differences don't really matter because the common denominator in men committing suicide is men feeling depressed, like they have no other option. They feel too embarrassed or whatever to go and get help. And at the end of the day, it just comes down to men needing to
wait a second.
Getting help.
So you think that this is broadly cross-cultural then, where men just refuse to do this? Maybe it's part of our nature?
I think
like
yes,
it's part
when
of our
most men
nature,
commit
maybe?
suicide.
No, I think
No,
it's
it's not part of it.
I think it's a social conditioning. Like when you tell someone at a
it's
young
social.
age,
Then why would it be
Yeah,
such cross-culture?
Angela, yeah, that's a great question. Like, why? If we look historically, men have not had the ability to communicate their feelings as well as women throughout history. So it's probably not a cultural thing. It's probably a genetic thing. When we talked before about being stoic, right? Not only does stoicism something that men look to other men and say, hey, like the Clint Eastwood type of stoicism, they look at those men as being more high status. Women also reward that type of behavior, and because of that, men are less likely to share their feelings. That's just one of the reasons why. And there are probably other reasons why, but the answer is probably more. It's in a man's nature. It's in his genetics for him to not be as good at sharing his feelings as women are. Now,
right, part of the nature is that's what I'm alluding to, is that
Yeah.
there must be some part of the nature, if it's cross-cultural, and you still see a heightened level among men. I would think that this would be part of something which is man's nature. Now, I think maybe it's arguable which aspects, and I don't disagree with Destiny 100% that there's not social qualifiers for this. Obviously, there are. We have the reported reasons for it, but I do think that there is a nature to men and a nature to women which is distinctly different, and part of that nature is that, I think because we have this aggressive nature, things like this, we have the follow-through for that.
And I think it's also men by nature are leaders. Men by nature are competitive. Men by nature want to have status and be on top. And I think when men don't achieve that, they are extremely hard on themselves to the point where sometimes they just give up and end it. I don't think men by nature are going to commit suicide more. I think just men by nature have take ego way more seriously and take status and all that.
I think I successfully derailed from.
So when they
you can't separate one from the other, Malik.
Michael Sartain. I think I successfully derailed that.
The essence of male. If that is an essence of maleness, you can't. Then
so okay. I guess
in a
by
vacuum
nature
would commit suicide less because they are committing suicide more and have always. That's the reason why.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess
if men and women were
nature,
not in a vacuum, yeah.
Yeah, you could make that statement. And I think the solution to that is just that men need to support men better and have less of an ego complex where if you're not number one with a sports car and a hot girl by age 25 or 26, or if your wife divorces you, you don't have to end it. You can get help, you can get support. You don't always have to be number one. And I think that the competitive nature is
but I mean, so I don't disagree with everything you're saying, but don't you think that really the outreach towards men's support is that's a pretty recent thing, where there has really been any type of outreach towards men's issues, men's rights issues. Talking maybe the last decade, where it's even become prominent at all in my lifetime, anyway. So this is kind of a new thing that we're dealing with, isn't it? It's kind of a new thing.
Well, it's hard to reach out for men's issues because as soon as you start talking about it, a lot of the leaders in the men community push back against it, right? The quote unquote leaders in men's communities right now, for red pill type people, are going to tell you that emotions are gay, and they're going to tell you that talking about your feelings as a guy makes you a fucking loser, and they're going to say that if you cry in front of a girl, she's going to leave you instantly. On that Fresh and Fit unofficial subreddit, half that subreddit spent 2 weeks roasting Myron because he cried a little bit when his YouTube channel got demonetized, which is probably one of the most traumatizing things that he's probably ever experienced in his life. So it's not surprising that it's hard to talk about these issues when either women have to talk about them, which, let's be real, as men, we don't want to hear women talk about our experiences, and then when we look to men to talk about them, they basically just say that we're weak or pussies or losers or whatever for having emotion.
Wait a second. Let me push back a little bit on this, because I think that that's an absurd statement. I think that all of those things, stoicism and these types of things, that is good advice from these red pill leaders. Now, you might say, well, wait a second. When we talk about these things, they're roasting these guys incessantly for crying and this kind of thing. I think it's because we've been told that it's not okay for us to lean into our nature. So it's not okay for us to be stoic. We need to be more emotional, things like this. And that's where the lack of support really comes in, is from society at large saying, no, you need to not be so masculine. You need to not do these things. That's my counter to that, Destiny.
Well, but it seems like the hypermasculinity is part of the problem. That your refusal to talk to somebody or open up to somebody, be vulnerable to somebody about a problem, seems to be a big issue.
Like toxic masculinity?
The number one... Yes, yeah. Okay. It seems like one of the biggest predictors for being suicidal, even in Japan, is being isolated and depressed. Or I'm sorry, being isolated. There was another word I was looking for, but it's not that. But being isolated, yeah. That if you have nobody in your life, you're fucked, and that's going to be one of your big predictors for actually killing yourself.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
And
I get that
it
that's a
also-
predictor, but don't you think though that as the light has been shined on these men-specific issues, these are more tailored towards men, that as kind of these red pill leaders, who I don't agree with a lot of what they say, I come from a Christian standpoint, but I do agree with a lot of the descriptions that they make of these problems, that it is actually okay for men to embrace this kind of stoicism. It is okay for us to be masculine, not talk about our feelings, things like this. Isn't it really societal pushback which is causing that? Saying, no, you need to. You know, it's not okay for you to be this way. It's not okay to be a man. It's not okay to be a masculine man. Like, there's a lot of
what
that.
What you're talking about is literally the things that drive a lot of guys to suicide. I can't talk about this. I got to be a man. I need to man up. I shouldn't be upset about these things. I should just figure it out on my own. Like, that seems to be the problem.
Yeah, but the
Let's
problem.
also let Michael get a word in after you're done.
Okay,
Andrew.
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say before when we think about people who lived 50,000 years ago, their daily routine was basically not quite on the level of starvation, but they're on a
Now we'll
survival
finish
scenario
him.
all the time. There's no
Finish
no
him.
money. There's status is basically based on how much they can provide.
We'll
for their
use the
tribe.
logic
In
back
those
the
type
other
of
way.
situations, depression doesn't creep in because their life is either survive or die. And so you have those situations over and over again when those people don't have time to sit there and be introspective and look at other people on social media and compare themselves to cars and other people's girlfriends, et cetera, et cetera. Every day is kill the gazelle or family dies.
Wait, hang on. There's a problem here, though, and this is why I'm giving the pushback that I'm giving. Why do you see the suicidality rate so low in the 30s, 40s, 50s, things like
'Cause
this?
I think we're closer to survival.
As it's accelerated. And no, this was not a survival tech. You know, we weren't hunting gazelles in the
We had
50s.
the Great
This
Depression.
was
Right.
you know what I mean? Not at all. And yet you see those rates significantly lower. Don't you think that this is because it was actually okay for you to be toxic or part of this toxic masculinity, that was viewed by society as being all right instead of all this pushback against it?
I don't know. I think you still are closer to a survival scenario before the advent of broad spectrum antibiotics in the 1930s. So like that's why I still.
Yeah, I'm
think
talking
you're
about
still
the
living-
50s.
Okay, in the 50s, maybe things are definitely a little different, but we're still an agrarian culture until like maybe after World War II. And so I think in those situations, when you're in a situation where I got to get up and work every day, I don't have time to compare myself to other people. I think as time passes on, once we get to the 1950s, we have the advent of television around 1953. And then later on, we get into, we start comparing ourselves to other people. I think that's where the depression starts to happen. Usually when you go back and look at Dunbar's number, Dunbar's the anthropologist who had this idea that human societies were always 150
Yes,
people.
I might agree with some of that, but again, the
Yeah.
pushback is, even if that's true, if it's the advent of television and communication, isn't it a pushback on the ideas that you have and the masculinity that you hold and things like this? That's bad. Isn't that the pushback you're talking about?
Sure,
By the
that
advent
could
of
be-
these things?
That could be it too, but I also think like it's not necessarily like people going around and being like I need to be more masculine and more feminine or talk about my feelings. I think it was one of the things that I've noticed is that when I went to basic training, all the things I cared about
What
before
branch?
basic training.
What branch were you?
Air Force. When I went
That's
to
not basic training.
I went to OTS. When I was in OTS, I remember how about this survival school. I went to SEER school where they beat you and they throw you in a jail cell and they keep you up for a couple of days. When I'm in those situations, one of the things I remembered was
Is that
I didn't care about
pararescue?
No, I was. It's Spokane, Washington, at Fairchild Air Force Base. It's SEER school,
Okay.
survival, evasion, reconnaissance, and escape.
Yeah, I thought
think
that
it
was a prerequisite for pararescue. I'm sorry, I don't.
Yeah,
know
it
much
is.
about
It is
the
a
Air Force.
correct.
Okay.
There were pararescue guys
Okay.
in our troop in our
Okay,
class.
gotcha.
This is back in 2004. So anyway, in that situation, I noticed all these things that were in my mind, all these weird thoughts about how do I look, and I didn't care about how I looked. I didn't care about how I smelled. I didn't care about talking to women. I didn't care about what TV show was on. I was back
Because
into a
those are
survival
okay.
scenario.
It was all okay, right? It was
Yes,
it was
because
pushed
think-
that you
because-
should
because-
be that way.
because I had 3 square meals and a place to sleep. So then I could go previously and then debate who owns Twitter or who the next president is. When I'm in a survival scenario, all I care about is surviving, getting away from pain, finding a comfortable place to sleep, and finding food. And the majority of human existence was that.
Yeah, but wasn't the
And as
culture based around embracing your masculinity and embracing what are considered broadly now to be toxic features? That is part of military culture. And so, of course, Of course, if that's the case, as you see this, wouldn't you agree with me then that a lot of this pushback maybe comes from all of this telecommunication and things like this, pushing back against your nature?
What he's saying isn't like has nothing to do with mask. It has nothing to do with anything relating to this topic. What he's really saying is like on a broad level that like if you're in the rat race like every day and you wake up, you work, you do your shit or whatever, it feels like really depressive thoughts relating to suicide. These are things that settle in when you've got a whole lot of free time and a whole lot of other people to compare yourself to, and then a whole lot of life to compare your shit to. So for instance, like again, a lot of people think that the highest suicidality is among like teenagers. It's not. It's like old men. It's men that are sitting at home. They might not be working anymore. They've got no family anymore, and they're just alone and bored and want to kill themselves. But that if you've got shit you're doing every single day, it's harder for that to set in.
Yeah, well, I get the argument that, hey, if you're not thinking about anything except whatever the pressing needs are, you're not going to be thinking about suicidality. I get that. I understand that. What I'm talking about is even in the 50s, people had plenty of free time. So why was the rate so much lower? I think that there must have been some kind of cultural pushback.
I think back then in the 50s, men could not just have free time. Like, society has made everything.
They did have free time.
Now
they had recreation time.
Obviously, they had some free time, but nowadays you don't even need to fucking grocery shop for yourself. You can get shit ordered to your house. You don't have to drive. You can Uber. You can Lyft. You can do whatever. Like, society has made it where people can be as lazy as they possibly want to. It does come at a cost, but you had to do a lot more back then. Like, you had to like leave the house if you needed to get food. You today can just sit in bed all day and fucking run and order food to your house. And I think the more you are doing absolutely nothing,
and then you could have milk delivered to your front door. I just don't feel like this is a good argument.
I think there's probably a lot more markers to success.
You said people were just as lazy back then as they are today, and I'm saying that.
Yeah, I broadly think that that's true.
That's probably true, but I don't think it's about laziness. I think one is free time, and the other is like comparisons to other people. I think that
right. So the technology pushes that, though, right? Don't you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
The technology and like the lifestyles that we're sold.
Right.
Like, it feels like broadly
As
speaking,
usual,
it like prior
right.
to, I don't know, prior to like what the 70s or 80s, like basically like have a family, have a house, like you do okay, maybe get like the coolest whatever the fuck car was being made back then, and like that was it. But now it feels like you've got social pressures that are pushing you every single fucking microsecond of the day, comparing you to every single other person around the entire fucking world, right? Like my guess is probably in like the 40s and 50s, the average girl wanted to be as cool as like the best flapper or whatever the fuck they were called at their local dance school or whatever. Whereas now like every single woman wants to be like the Kardashian or the Kylie Jenner, or not even fuck. I don't even know what the fuck the celebs are because I don't follow that shit. But like people are comparing themselves.
There's a push towards materialism, right?
Yeah, people are comparing themselves like on an international level more than they ever have at every single fucking moment of their life. Like a 15-year-old girl knows what the prettiest girl in the world looks like, and she's on her fucking phone in front of her every single fucking day, you know? And it's like, yeah, that type of pressure and stress, and same thing with men too, right? Like the average man, like who did the average man look up to? Probably fucking comic book heroes in the 50s and 60s.
That I just
and
got
now the
done
average man
saying,
sees Andrew Tate as 75.
He's like
Bugattis,
going fucking ham affirming everything I just said.
He's like, holy shit, I'm such a fucking loser, you know? Yeah.
Destiny.
Yeah, so you would say that. So then Destiny,
Destiny
utilizing that then.
It's actually 77 Bugattis. Just get that.
Well, Destiny is like going with that. Then you would say then it must be this kind of push towards societal materialism, which is problematic and definitely a massive contributing factor, right?
Yeah, it is, but that's that push, kind of like how I said earlier, society is gearing itself towards higher and higher IQ. It's probably gearing itself towards higher and higher EQ as well. You have to be able to resist more emotionally and psychologically, which men aren't equipped well to do, because traditionally men are equipped to work a job, get a woman with your paycheck, have sex, and then just that's kind of all you have to do as a guy. And the society is leveled up to where you need to be able to do way more mentally and emotionally, and men don't have the training for that because our fathers didn't do it, so they can't teach us to do it, and men don't really like to learn those things from women, so you're kind of just fucked.
Well, wait a second.
So, like,
those societies were dealing with global war and all sorts of things we don't have to deal with at all, where people were coming home in body bags. They were definitely dealing with significant trauma and significant emotional problems that we don't even have to deal with now. I'm not so sure that that's the answer, man.
So this is going to sound really cold, but I think in a really roundabout way, I think wars aren't the worst thing for your society. I think wars in some ways can even be positive.
Fucking based Destiny?
No, I'm saying that you've got a common enemy. Everybody goes out and works, everybody's got like a thing to build towards, like it drives you forward to have an enemy. I think that being at war with somebody, and even if people are dying, and even if it's horrible on a descriptive level, being at war with somebody, I think is a lot more mentally and psychologically endurable than every single day you wake up and you look at your cell phone and you see how poor you are, you see how many bitches you don't have, you see how much your job sucks, you see how many student loans you have, I think that's way more mentally
But wait
grating.
a second, no. I mean, you're seeing your buddies getting shot, going home, you're never the same again.
Stop. I'm not talking about an actual veteran with PTSD. Most people in the United States did not fight in World War II.
Yeah, but almost nobody was unaffected by it. I mean, it was still your brother died. Your
most people didn't have a brother die. I'm saying that
your son died, or your friend had sons who died. Things like it was definitely a hugely traumatic experience on the society.
Yes, and for the people that it was affecting directly, those people probably had way higher suicide rates than anything today, right? But my guess is a military veteran that deployed into Normandy or whatever, or any other theater in World War II, probably has much higher suicidality rates than the average population today.
And
so those people were affected.
Sure. And like Audie Murphy wrote in his biography that he had nightmares about this and this type of thing. So I agree with you in this aspect. However, it seems, again, like if we're kind of focusing on this and saying war even takes your mind away from the potentiality of thinking about suicidality and this type of thing, all roads seem to lead back to materialism being the primary problem here.
Yeah, but we're not getting rid of materialism. So now we need to learn to mentally equip ourselves.
Well, you can actually get rid of, you can't get rid of materialism, but you can draw back, and here's how you can do it. Religion teaches against materialism. Now, it doesn't state emphatically that you can have no material gains, but the whole point here is to have some discipline against materialism. That seems like it's the answer. There's no other answer except a religion to counter materialism. What would a secularist say against materialism? They have nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I think that's all bullshit. I think that people in this day and age are just spoiled people who don't know how to express themselves and their whole position in life. I think that we're enjoying all the modern day perks of technology and the accessibility to each other's. And I think that women have always expressed themselves. They've always been emotional, whatever we can say. I think that men have emotions. They just choose not to express them. I'm not saying expressing them just to pander to each other. But
we walked them right into it, both of them. All of them. We walked them right into it. Materialism is the problem.
Into how you feel and can
materialism
help you
is the problem, ladies and gentlemen.
A man in your life, or a woman in your life, your family. I think that possibly back
walking
in the day,
these people into this.
I think that if
it's
you're
just
too
a
busy
joy
building
to do.
America, you don't really have time to sit here and think
just
about how all the people on Instagram are like filthy rich, and that maybe just your perception, but that's not the reality. And you don't know that if you're not talking to someone about that. And I think that a lot of younger people are just on their phones scrolling and comparing themselves to people on social media. Although they complain about it, they enjoy the hell out of it. So I guess it's
can we get like a hand emoji, a fist emoji, where it's like, and then that number?
Did I lose everybody?
No. We're all here.
Angela, the only thing I would push back on is when you said people are spoiled.
Give me the fist emoji.
Andrew's point.
Let's do that.
That is.
Let's do the fist emoji.
Maybe the part about people not talking about their feelings as much, you may disagree with them, but I actually agree with this concept. Like, we've lost the ability to feel gratitude because we're constantly exposed to things that are outside of our reality. Like the prettiest girls in the prettiest photos that have been face apped, and they use Facetune, and people having Lamborghinis that they don't actually own.
I like Angela. Okay, she's
FOMO that
nice
we were not
enough.
evolutionarily
She's never
designed
treated
to
me
feel, cause us to
poorly.
feel massive amounts of depression.
You know what I mean?
Another way to
we
say
can
that
have
is
arguments and
because
still be
if we were in a
like
scenario where we had to live
whatever.
hand to mouth every day, we would not have the luxury of even being of worrying about that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think that with all of that, it always gears you to want to do better in society.
It all goes back to materialism.
I don't think
exactly.
It has to be to the
every
extreme
time.
of you feeling like you can achieve those things, but you should want to at least,
That's why I love
Jim
Bob.
So there is a balance.
Naturalism
but social media does not provide that balance. Social media goes way far in one direction to show you incredible levels of what's it called, wealth and opulence.
Shit you'll never have.
Right, and that's why you have a sense of community with your friends, your family, your whoever is next to you. So
you're right.
Actually,
yeah.
Check yourself and your friends and family, which is what men don't do. You guys just go fishing and just stare at the water. I think that's a big issue.
But hold on. But
I
think fishing,
we do what? We go fishing and just stare at the water.
Fishing and
Yeah.
stare at the water isn't the problem. Fishing and stare at the water is probably going to keep you from committing suicide.
What
Fishing and
is
staring at
this
the water
argument? What?
promotes gratitude. It promotes gratitude.
That's how
and
low
present
the
moment
bar
awareness.
is. Because, like, for example, if you go fishing, you talk about, like, listen, my wife hasn't fucking unloaded the dishwasher in 3 fucking weeks. And you're like,
Is
why?
that what you
I
think
don't
we
know.
do when we go fishing? Let's do
Yes.
let's do a live stream. Me, Andrew, Destiny.
Yeah,
and
no,
Alex go
fishing. No, listen, there is some relaxation to fishing, and it's
Fishing
true.
is not-
There is
explain
waiting,
fishing right
but
now.
fishing has nothing to do with fish. It has to do with
No,
beer
no,
drinking
listen,
and
hear me out.
camaraderie.
I get it. I know everybody hates this because maybe y'all don't like fishing, but let's say, like, hypothetically, you have some issues in your life and you go fishing. You just stand there
Toxic
and you
white
just stand in
fishing.
silence. That's how
It's
low
actually
the
therapeutic.
fucking
Now you got to
bar
send
is
fucking
for
Rolo
men.
$10.
You
Thanks,
sit there.
chat, and he's
The
gonna
issues are
plaque
still
it, you fuckers.
there. It's like drinking, doing drugs.
He's gonna plaque
having
that
sex.
shit.
But
He's
some
gonna
women
plaque
do
that
make it
$10
to
on
the
his wall
morning
so
for
quick.
nothing. Like, I
Fishing
say,
and
Tom,
having
like,
sex
why are we
are
hating
good.
on hobbies?
No, but they
Fishing and
don't
having
take
sex are good.
Okay, hold on,
Drugs?
I think okay. She chose the worst example, but the point that she's making is true, and that like this is what it feels like. Okay, and I think it's been true in anything I've seen, and maybe for some of you it's not. But it feels like if there is a woman and she's about to do something dumb or make a bad decision, it feels like every single woman in her life is about to give her a whole bunch of reasons why, hey, don't do this, don't do that. Like, you seem like you're in trouble. Like, what's going on? Like, let's talk about this. And men will literally kind of like sit by and nod and smile while their other men like are the most self-destructive motherfuckers in the world.
Well, but
It seems like we have a much harder time calling out, and I don't mean call out in like a woke way. I just mean like telling a guy like, hey, bro, you need to like wake the fuck up. Like, you're destroying your fucking life right now. It seems like men are more willing to let other men walk
But
off
is it-
cliffs and be like, hey, he's doing what he's doing. You know, good luck.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut
And-
you
and
off, but
also,
isn't
I
that
think
part
the
of the
point-
nature
I don't
of
think anyone's
men?
brought up, but this-
Isn't
I
that
don't think
part
it
of
has
the
to be.
nature of men to take risk? Yeah, well, I think it does have to be. I mean, the jobs,
have
these
to
very
be.
jobs that we're talking about, you
Not
know,
on
working
jobs
working
anymore.
online, things like this, working as a lineman for the power infrastructure, you have to take risk. And
We don't-
being risk
mo-
aversive is
every
not good
single
for
man-
men.
Every single man can learn to have a conversation about how they feel. Even people that work on lines, even people that are police officers, every single guy can learn that.
But
It's
what
not
does that
hard.
have to do with what I'm saying? Even if they can have a conversation about how they feel, that doesn't mean that they can necessarily mitigate the risk the same way women can.
Because that's part of mitigating the risk. The first step is being able to talk to somebody. Most men don't even want to do that.
Yeah, but when you're talking about talking to
One
other
of the
people,
reasons,
so you're saying like,
one of the reasons why
ahead.
men live longer in marriage is just because they're too stubborn to even go to the fucking doctor, and their wives make them do it, and they get longer lifespans.
well,
for
actually,
it.
I think that if a man's woman dies, he dies shortly thereafter, whereas women live a much longer life.
yeah, because men aren't the best for women all the time.
No, that's not
But-
the case. I think that it's a heartbreak issue. That's what they're looking at.
Sure,
is
we
it's
can call it. I'm just saying that
emotional.
men
But
that
moving
are married
back,
have
but moving
so
back
many
to this,
better
when you're talking about
outcomes.
risk, men have to take risk, whether they talk about taking the risk or not. It's no wonder that when men talk to other men, they don't mitigate them from taking risk because we know we have to do so. We have
This
to.
is-
You have to take risk.
No, this is so stupidly reductive. I don't know why you make this so reductive of everything. It's not about taking risks.
I'm
Sometimes
getting to
guys
the
just
core of
do-
the argument.
Okay, it's reductive to the point of absurdity.
How is it
Like,
absurd?
it's absurd because when you see a guy making a bad choice or a stupid choice, you're like, bro, you need to stop, or this behavior is not good.
Yeah, but
You need to
that's
call it out. You don't need to-
subjective. That's
you
a
don't- you don't-
subjective
It's not
analysis.
subjective. If your friend is addicted to fucking crack or something, no guy is like, well, it's intrinsic in a man's
Those
life.
are
to take
outliers,
risks.
bro. Those are outliers. When you're talking about
No, that's
the-
exactly
when
what
you-
we're talking
your
about.
friend?
Things like substance abuse. No, hold on. Drug abuse and
Dude.
substance abuse are like one of the big things associated with like fucking suicide.
Yeah, sure. But if your friend comes to you, on the other hand, like with women who say, look, you know, I'm unhappy with my relationship and my job, they might get all kinds of support saying, look, you don't need to really take much risk, stay where the safety zone is. Whereas if men go to their male friends and say, look, I'm thinking about starting a business. Okay, and I have X amount of money saved, and that's what I'm going to
Bro,
do.
we're
It's
not
highly
we're
risky.
talking-
Stop. No,
no,
I am
we're not
talking.
talk-
I'm talking. It is highly risky. And their friends are going to encourage them to do that, whereas women often will try to retract, say you shouldn't do that. You can look at the trends and see this for yourself. Women often will gatekeep that and say, don't take risk. They're not risk takers. Men are the risk takers. It's not just with drugs, Destiny.
Okay, unless you're okay. All risks are not the same. The risk of starting a business
agree.
does not mean that you have to risk dating a girl with BPD who stabbed 3 men. But a woman will go on
smuggling
a
that
date with a. Stop using debate bro terms. Just listen to what I'm saying. Instead of
I
being
am
like,
listening.
You're smuggling and you're banging.
I've been listening the
Listen to
whole
what I'm
night,
saying.
but I don't want you
Listen
to
what I'm
straw
saying.
man me.
I'm
That's
not.
all.
Nobody's. Your argument is that the same type of risk that makes a man start a business is the same type of risk that makes him make any other number of stupid decisions.
That's not my
life.
argument. I'll repeat it.
Andrew, nobody understands your argument. I don't know. I'm
except everybody who does. But listen,
right.
I'll repeat it.
Can anyone else on this panel summarize the argument so I mess it up? I want to hear if anybody else got it. I'm sorry.
I bet you Sartain can. I bet you Sartain can do it.
Okay, Sartain. Yes, that's Sartain. Tell me. So Sartain.
He was fucking annoyed at his fucking voice to even listen to what he was fucking saying.
Nice. Sartain. So what it sounded to me like what he was saying, and you tell me what he was actually saying. It sounded like he was saying, you can't tell men that you can't take risks on, say, crazy women or crazy college decisions because men are risk takers naturally. And if men are going to encourage each other to do things like starting good businesses, they're probably also going to watch men take other risks that might equally be bad. That the risks, good and bad, are part of being a man. That's what it sounded like.
Notice how he's giving Sartain my position.
What he was saying, please.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for him, but I think it's a spectrum, right? Like what you said before about people over the age of 30 who are like trying to tear their friends down. Some people are just bad people, and some people, and like what he said, what Andrew said also,
Destiny
the concept of do men need
gave
to take
Sartain my argument,
provide more so that they're more attractive to the opposite sex, and so
it's pretty funny actually.
Men, yes, they have to be able to do both of those things, but yeah, I don't want to put words in Andrew's mouth.
Well,
I kind of understand what he's saying, but what it feels like,
sounds like he understood it fine.
Nobody
understood it though, right?
It's kind of it's kind of hyper. Hold on, but what Andrew's saying is a little bit hyperbolic. It's like all the time.
Nobody understood except the guy who understood.
The reality situation is men can. Destiny, because I'm in the military, because I was in the military, we had this thing called 22, I forgot it was 22 push-ups or whatever. And we did 22 push-ups every day for the 22 men that committed suicide every day in the U.S. military. It was a serious problem for people in the U.S. military. And so what we did is we tried to enforce a culture where when somebody in our troop, when someone in our unit was
some golden rings
suicide,
of coke, gentlemen,
we would try to get them as much help as possible. What we do, like for instance, my coaching program, we turn the recording off, and we let guys tell them a story. It's usually a story having to do with divorce, getting cheated on, or losing custody, or losing a lot of money, or stuff like that. I think both things can be true. Men in their nature can be more stoic, take more risks, and be less encouraging of
He's
men
right. They can
spreading their feelings, and at the same
time,
that's not necessarily a good thing.
Because
I don't want my friends to die. Like I know,
sure, I understand exactly what you're saying. I think that we can take. I think that just because a guy tells me that I shouldn't risk smoking crack doesn't mean he's going to destroy my drive to be an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, so because there's different types of risk.
Yes, right. Exactly. When women go on dates and they bring a close friend, that close friend, literally the stereotype is she's there to validate the woman's choice of man, to make sure she's not making some dumb decisions. A guy will see another dude go out with a fucking insanely hot chick who's 19 years old and says she wants you to fucking breed her tonight and she's got a double felony, and the guys will be like, bro, I hope you pull out in time. Fucking good luck, man. Like we too.
Right, why are you talking about me like this? I'm sitting right here.
It's totally the fucking opposite world. Yeah, no, I know. But I'm saying, like, you can probably be like a good guy friend and tell a guy to mitigate risk in some areas without saying you've got to be a neutered puppy that's too scared to take any risk whatsoever in life. These two things don't have to be the same.
Yeah, but what we're saying is that there's a conflation, which I think happens culturally, where because we are the risk takers and the pushers of risk, that when other men do risky behavior, we're less inclined to push back on it. That's my whole point.
Yeah, I think we're arguing like degrees here. Like I think both things.
And he had nothing. He has nothing to say. He literally has nothing to say to that. He has nothing to say.
And does not see any weakness whatsoever. And then we can
no
have
response,
normal reactions with, like, again, my father was very stoic, and then near the end of his life, we got.
He's just like, closer, yeah, that's true.
Walls had to come down for the betterment of our relationship. Both things can be true. That's all I'm saying. It's like life is a spectrum. You know what I'm saying? The other thing I would say this is when I would deal with like the SEER instructors, when I was going through SEER schools, I'm going through airspace and basic course when I was in the military.
So bad.
Upon training, they treated me like shit. They treated me like I was lower than dirt. At the end,
I wish
they
Sartain
treated me like I was
anecdotes.
one of theirs, and we were able to share commonality and camaraderie as service members. And so that's one thing that happens, is that a lot of times men have to earn the respect of other men, and then they can share in some of these commonalities. But it's it's a very complicated subject. And
he hasn't taken a W yet.
Let's let.
I would be honest and say,
I think she had her hand
but he hasn't taken a W the whole night, Destiny.
Oh wow, I'm still in this debate. That's cool.
You're still.
And she hates the sound of my voice.
Yeah, I honestly, my brain fucking rotted from listening to that. But no, I was gonna bring up a point that I don't think anyone's fucking touched on.
Oh great!
And it's
this
the
is gonna
fact
be
that
great.
in today's society, porn is so fucking normalized, and porn fucking rots people's
What does this
brains,
have to do with
and
anything?
especially with
What an
like
idiot.
OnlyFans and Fansly and all this shit
Totally
now.
fucking
All
diverting.
these men are idolizing these women, spending
God,
all
what
their
a waste of
fucking money
time.
on these women that they'll never get to be with. They're fucking depressed because they'll never be with a woman like this. They watch porn all day. They jack off all day. They do fucking nothing with their life. And
Hey,
they
thanks,
get
Miles. I
themselves into
appreciate it.
this
I'll get to all you
massive
guys' super
depressive
chats
state,
after the
and
panel.
they're not gonna fucking talk to their friends. Oh, I'm addicted
Just
to like
fucking
porn, and I
wasting
jack off all
time.
day, and I spend hundreds of dollars every single day on all these fucking OnlyFans girls.
Yeah, why the
and
fuck
it
is
makes
she?
them depressed.
She's just
and then
moving
they
to
just
something
ending
she
up
knows.
offing themselves.
Just
Right,
moving to
so
something she
I-
knows.
that's
Found it, now let's
They're
say-
not
Porn
offing
exists.
themselves over
Porn
fucking
Most guys on OF don't
OnlyFans.
off themselves, but yeah, I understand your point. Makes it
Yeah,
more
but
likely.
no, but like
Makes it
like
more
I
likely.
think that's like part of the like drastic increase like in depression in men is fucking porn, and like I don't know.
Yeah, so I think all of that are coping mechanisms, and we need to go down to the root of it, which is like the core family values. Where are the fathers? Where are the mothers? If we're still practicing this ridiculous tradition
Welcome,
of
James.
men not speaking to their sons, just like, well, you know, I had to figure out how to swim. You can figure out how to swim. When in reality, they don't have to be in survival mode. Why are men still in survival mode, and why aren't other men tapping into this part of them that they are naturally not supposed to? It's not like you can't. I don't understand why we don't look at the patterns of how that's affected you as a human being, as a grown-ass man, to look like, you know what, my son doesn't have to be bitch made, but he's also not going to be a cold motherfucker. So why don't I just like speak some sense into him instead of letting the streets raise him, or the internet raise him, or porn raise him?
Well, tell us, Angela, what is the sense that you would speak so that he had the diametric between the two? What is the perfect balance, do you think, between him being a stoic man and him being in touch with his feelings and feminine side?
Well, you got to think of it like in a workforce. Like, you may feel like you want to punch your boss in the face, but you don't tell her like I want to fucking stab you. You just look at her like, you know what? Not today. I'm gonna figure out how to deal with this emotionally, get through the day, and you have to understand how to compartmentalize your feelings. There's a time and a place to be stoic. There's a time and place to bash someone in the face. Like,
yeah,
I
you're
don't know,
just
punching
re-describing the problem, though. You're not giving the solution. You're saying that
the
you
solution
think
is understanding how to regulate your emotions. So if you feel
right,
like
so
you wanna bash
stoicism.
somebody-
So how much of that versus how much you're able to engage with these feelings and how you're allowed to be a man. This is the problem, which is fundamental. Destiny can't tell you what that is. Michael can't tell you what that is. I can't tell you what that is. It's intuitive. That's the problem.
That's because you're asking a bullshit question. You're saying, can you give us the exact percentage of stoic feelings a person
Not even
ought to
saying
have?
that. I'm just
Like
saying if you were to
99% of the questions that you ask on this panel are literally unanswerable, and then you walk away acting you've made a point. What would society look like if every man decided to oppress everyone? I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry, Destiny. You don't know logic. Spurg more, Destiny.
So no, when you no one is spurging. I'm trying to explain something. You're asking questions. You ask her, what is the exact level of stoicism
That was her
somebody
argument.
needs?
It was her
No,
argument.
Her argument was not that you need.
What
an
was
exact
her
level of
argument
stoicism.
then?
The argument was that the level of unemotionality or inability to grapple with or healthily process emotions right now on men is too low.
So tell me where it needs to be then, Destiny, since that's her argument.
47.9%. Right now it's at 22.8%. It needs to be at 47.9%.
Yeah, troll it. Don't give me the answer because you don't know it. And I just said that it's unknowable.
47.9%, Andrew.
I just
47.9. That's
said
exactly the answer.
I just said it's unknowable. There's nothing I said which was wrong. I'm pointing out the critique to her argument, which is very simple. And the critique, let me finish. The critique was very simple. She said the problem is that we don't know how to match the stoicism between whatever her feminine qualities are for what she thinks that a man ought to use in order to process their emotions. What is that supposed to look like? I don't know. You don't know. Michael doesn't know. It's intuitive. It can't be anything but intuitive. And you just basically affirmed that that's true.
I did not affirm that that's true.
Then what is it? Then what is it?
If you want to use the debate bro terms, and what you're doing is you're engaging in a continuum fallacy. You're saying that since I can't tell you exactly when the individual bits of sand become a pile of sand, that piles of sand don't exist. If you want an exact
they would be intuitive? Wait, they would be intuitive, Destiny?
If you want an exact answer on what it looks like when men engage more healthily with their emotions, you can look at the speech that Mr. Rogers gave in front of Congress, where he says maybe some of the drama that we can show young boys on TV aren't two people fighting each other to the death like in Power Rangers or G.I. Joe. Maybe it can be two boys working out their emotions when they're trying to learn how to share toys on the playground. Or maybe it can be a boy talking to a teacher about how upset he is that his mom or dad said something mean to him. Those would be concrete examples of how to help people work through emotions, because little girls get that kind of emotional training and little boys don't. They're just told to go outside and run it off. Nothing about what I just said was intuitive.
It is intuitive. The only reason that you're
Okay, you have
expressing,
nothing to say. You don't.
I'm literally giving you a
you're
counter
not engaging with
argument.
what I'm
Giving
saying.
you a counter
No, you're not-
argument.
no, you can't. Can you
Don't
tell
cut
what
me
I just
off.
said?
Let me give you the counter
Wait,
argument.
no, wait. Can you
Yes,
tell me what I just said
you
first?
said one of the ways that you, as a man or as a woman, could give an expression for how you can reconcile both of these feelings for both stoicism and the proper amount of aggression versus the proper or non-proper amount of aggression. And you gave these anecdotal examples. Am I wrong?
You're wrong. They're not.
Okay, what did
anecdotal
I
examples.
do?
You asked me specifically.
How are they not
would you
anecdotal?
address- So I get, because giving an example is not an anecdote. You fucking retard. What do you
Those-
think that means?
Those
That's not
examples
an
were anecdotal. Yes.
No, they were examples for how to deal. That's not an anecdote. An anecdote is a story that's happened in the past.
Which is what you just gave me was two stories that happened in the past.
That's not an anecdote. If I say
You just
if I say-
described it as being one.
No, if I say, hey, how can I help? How can I discipline a student in the class? You go, well, you can give the student detention if he misbehaves.
Sure.
You go, oh, well, that's an anecdote. That's not an anecdote. Do you know what an anecdote is?
Okay, backing up, try to understand that I did give you your argument back. If your criticism is that you don't believe that it's anecdotal, fine. I'll cede the criticism. I don't care. But moving into this, you say that I'm engaging in a continuum fallacy, but she's the one who gave the argument. All I did was point out as a criticism to the argument, look, if you are not able to give us this precision, which I don't believe anybody on the panel can, then this would have to be intuitive. How is that wrong?
Because that argument, that is a non sequitur. Just because you can't precisely
How's it not a non?
pinpoint-
How's it a non sequitur?
I was literally just explaining it before you so smugly repeated the question.
And I'm going to
when I was
smugly.
answering
I'm
the
going
question.
to. Yeah, go ahead.
I know. I understand. I know. In between huffs of your cigarette, that's all you can do. Okay. Just
Is
because
he
you
right?
can't- It's no, it's be
Anyway, go
smug and
ahead.
think you're right.
I am
the
right.
idea that just because I know you think you're right, Andrew, that's typically how it works. Thank you. Yes. The idea that just because you can't precisely pinpoint how to deal with a problem means that the problem must be intuitively dealt with or it can't be dealt with is a non
I
sequitur.
didn't
That's
say
not true.
only. I didn't say only. I said in this particular instance, yes, it must be intuitive, unless you can give me an example of how it couldn't be.
I just gave you two examples
So
of how you could do it, and you call them
Hang
anecdotes.
on. Both of those examples don't actually give us anything on the range of spectrum, though. So
How
the
do they
only
not
thing
give
I
us
can
that
do
relevant?
is
Why
say that
is that relevant, Andrew?
is say that Destiny's intuition says that these are good things to do.
I mean, if you're going to be hyper pedantic, we're all speaking
That's
from
not
our
pedantic.
No,
Listen.
it is pedantic because you're saying because Andrew just gave his intuition on what Destiny's
I
intuition
agree.
was.
That's true.
No, that's reductive and pedantic and pointless. All of
That's
us are
not
giving our
pointless.
intuition. We're subjective humans speaking about our own personal perspectives.
Right.
They're all in-
So if you make this argument and I point this out, then it's fair for me to point that out.
But
No,
it
it's not-
doesn't matter. Like, you're pointing out nothing. You're literally.
You're not saying anything.
Well, actually, no, I am. I'm saying something which
You're giving
is
me. You're actually
here.
giving me.
Let me help
brain
you.
rot because
Here.
you're
Let me help you out.
arguing
I
a
can help
completely
you.
Irrelevant factor.
It's like I can help you understand it better.
No, Andrew, I have a question. So if you think
Mm-hmm.
think that men are just destined to fucking commit suicide and like it's a brave thing to do, right? It's a brave way to go. What should men do? What should change in society for men to commit suicide less, in your opinion?
I'm sorry. What was the last
Like,
part
what's
that
the
you asked?
solution to? What's the solution to the high rates of suicide in men?
I think that single motherhood is one of the number one issues that I would take issue with, and I think a lack of masculinity and the understanding of society that men are allowed to be men is the number one core issue here. So the kind of the argument
No,
which
but
came,
I said, what do you suggest
So,
the solution is?
I just
Forget
gave
about
you the
the
solution. We want to remove single motherhood if we
Gave
can.
the issues.
How's that? I just explained
Okay,
it.
so single motherhood
Mhm.
is. How is that the solution? Like, if a man walks out or knocks up a girl and then leaves, like that's
Yeah,
why men
that's
are killing
bad,
themselves?
and we should try
And
to
that's the
mitigate
solution
that.
to
Now,
suicide?
yeah, we should try to mitigate that and
men
these
should wear
depressive
condoms.
factors. Yes, that's right, Malik. That's insane. It's like you caught on really quickly to what I'm saying.
So just curious, if I look this up,
suicide solved. Stop
if I look this up, is the
impregnating
biggest
women and
predictor
leaving them.
is the biggest predictor of suicidality being from a single
Why
mom?
would it need to be the biggest predictor?
Is it because you're saying because she asked you what is the thing
You
that
said
you would
that's
fix?
he said that's the
Yeah,
solution.
I gave a
And you said this was the
multi-pronged. I gave
solution.
you a multi-pronged answer.
Oh,
I said,
I'm sorry. I only heard that prong. What
Yeah,
was the
but
other
you've been
prong?
having trouble hearing all night. So the multi-pronged answer was A.
Excuse me. Your intuition, as I've been having trouble hearing.
That's true, but I can back this up with evidence that you can't repeat my arguments back,
Well, your intuition is that you can back it up with evidence
and I can.
intuitively.
And maybe you can intuitively understand them. Do you
Yeah,
think
no.
maybe we can do that or no?
My intuition is you're not
Is
understanding.
it too debate bro-ish for me to point out some of these arguments, or am I allowed to make them?
I mean, that's you. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean,
Okay,
you should be
can I
sorry.
propose something? Can I propose something? The idea would be
go ahead.
this, right? We would determine what are the goals that we want to achieve. So, like, let's say in this instance, we want specifically for men of this certain cohort to stop committing suicide. And so, what we would do is say, okay, what are the key contributing factors? So, men over the age of 40, let's say some sort of financial detriment, and say loss of child, whatever. We would say to look at these individuals and say we either need to, one, try to do things to keep those things from happening. Like Andrew was saying, maybe keep the family together, do things to try to keep the family together. Or number two is if we see people in that certain risk group. In the U.S. military, it would happen whenever we'd see enlisted members in very austere locations like Clovis, New Mexico, or Altus, Oklahoma, places like that where there's just no women. Those tended to be the ones who committed suicide more. We would look for those people in those key groups, and then we would try to figure out a way to come to that person and say, hey, man, do you need help? We want to let you know if you need to talk, we're here to talk to you. So, Andrew, in that case, it wouldn't be intuitive. We would have we would say, this is the type of individuals that might commit suicide, and then we'd come up with a plan for those.
So
those
I wouldn't disagree.
Factors.
I wouldn't disagree
Okay.
that would not be intuitive at that point. But
Yeah.
the criticism which I had was we need to do this kind of like broad generalization. And when I ask, well, what does that look like? You don't know what that looks like. So it's just an intuitive assessment at that point. It's like, that's fair enough. I think that a lot of parenting is intuition. I think that a lot of masculine traits are intuitively imparted from man to man. I don't think anybody here would disagree with that. And so this is the point that I'm making against the argument. So when I'm looking at this, Destiny says, I'm engaged in a continuum fallacy. We recognize that that's a response to an argument given to me. There was no fallacy. It's insane.
Based.
Malik.
Okay, so Andrew, I just looked up the statistics. So the number one reason for suicide in men, 32% of men commit suicide due to work pressures. And then the second highest reason is financial pressure. 31% of men commit suicide over financial pressures. So the two highest reasons are work pressures and financial pressures, which kind of go hand in hand. Okay, it's not, divorce is high up there too, but it's not about single moms. It's not about having a kid somewhere that you don't know. It's not about.
Actually, your stats don't demonstrate that. So the stats that you're giving me for the number one reason that is handed for whatever this problem is, that doesn't actually show whatever the correlative might be for single motherhood, being raised in a single household. Doesn't show any of that.
What if the only reason they've got to work hard is because they've got single moms? There you go.
That would also be problematic, don't you think?
Okay, so
I don't know why
those
that's
are the
funny to
top
you.
two reasons for suicide in men. If those are the top two reasons for suicide
you know what you
in
should
men,
do? You should do
what
the
is
head on the
solution
hands
to
thing
those
next.
issues?
What's that? Answer the question or ask the question again.
He was too busy looking at my beautiful face. Sorry.
If those are the top two causes for suicide in men, what is the solution to reduce those pressures?
The first solution is send me over your data so that I can review it, so that I know what you're saying to me is actually true. You can put it in the private chat, and then I can review it. Because the data that I'm looking at show different pressures. So there could be conflicting data here. So that's number one. And then the second thing is that, again, the response to the argument was there's not enough masculine versus feminine traits which are passed into young men, and so they don't know how to cope. My response to this argument was to say, well, if you don't know what that spectrum is supposed to be and it's intuitive, don't you think men should definitely be involved in that process? And don't you think that that's one of the primary reasons why children who come from these households do far better when they have intact families?
True.
Okay, I know Michael said that he has to go soon, so let's give him a chance to plug his channel and give any closing thoughts that he has.
Hey, man, I really appreciate it. I love the fact that we have open debate on these channels. I appreciate you guys allowing me to come on here and talk. This is a lot of fun. I thank you guys a lot. I'm about to start Access Vegas on my channel. If you guys want to check me out on YouTube at Michael Sartain. I also have the Michael Sartain podcast, which seems to be very offensive and pissing a lot of people off. So if you guys want to check that out, that's also on my YouTube channel, Michael Sartain. And I did a debate. It wasn't really a debate.
Fashion Destiny Spur.
Ended up being too many people on the panel with Nick Fuentes. Not Nick's fault, but afterwards his followers attacked me and mass reported my account, my Twitter, and it's gone. So if you guys want to check out my new Twitter, it's at Sartain Podcast. You guys are more than welcome to do that. I really appreciate it, and I will see you guys here pretty soon. Take care. Hey, man, thanks again, Andrew. Thank you, Angela.
Yeah, it was nice
Alex,
meeting
Malik,
you. I hope we have
Steve,
conversations in the future.
for sure.
Nice
Hey, Steven,
meeting
I'll talk to you soon, brother.
Yeah,
All right,
fun.
take it
All right,
easy,
man.
Michael.
Take care, guys.
All right, really quickly, I want to mention this because, what Michael said has happened more time than it should.
He did do
Angela
good.
recently had her Discord taken down by a bunch of trolls. So if anyone, this is the new PWF rule. I made a community post about it. If anyone is either talking about doxing someone or raiding their channel and
Base
getting them taken
rules.
down, interfering with them in any way, you will be banned, permanent ban from the channel, even if it happens on other platforms. You can talk shit about people. You can say whatever you want. You can say, I disagree with you. This person's a loser. They're fat, whatever the fuck you want to say. But if it's threats of doxing or threats of like basically getting their channel taken down or deplatforming, that's not cool. So that's just the new PWF policy. All right, anyway, do you guys have any more thoughts on this topic?
No, I'm good. I actually have to get out of here pretty soon too.
Okay, let's do I got a little bit of super chats. Can you guys hang in for a little bit while we go through these?
Of course.
I'm good for
Okay.
like another hour.
Sorry, what?
I said I'm good for like another hour before I have to go.
Okay,
Damn.
cool. All right, let's just quickly go through these. Okay. EB against take a okay. World War II is such a cope. It was unnecessary. Okay. Love to see Andrew write Destiny. Okay. Thank you.
Everybody loves to see that.
Which takes more
good for
training,
him.
an auto mechanic or a mechanical engineer? It's a nurse or brain surgeon. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Well, is the mechanical
accurate.
engineer a master? Or I'm sorry, is the auto mechanic a master auto mechanic?
Let's assume he is.
Okay, the master auto mechanic. I think that's the equivalent of, I don't remember if it's brain surgery or rocket science, but I'm pretty sure it's up there with one of the two.
Okay.
So hang on. So Destiny's dig there was a throwback to earlier in the debate. He's trying to say that because I claimed that there's a requisite training which is required between a journeyman and a master, which requires even more than a college education, that this is somehow a dig on me. But what Destiny fails to understand is it actually does. He can't dispute that it does because it's true. In this case, I think we'd probably both agree that a brain surgeon likely has more training involved in brain surgery, I would assume, but I don't know if that's actually true. I don't know if that's actually true, but I would assume that it's true.
I don't think it's true because women can do brain surgery, but women can't do construction, and
No,
men are
yeah,
better than
straw
women
man
at all
more.
jobs.
Straw
So
man
I think
more.
that if men can do construction and women can't, then women can do brain surgery and men can't. Then brain surgery must be easier than construction.
Well,
That'd
then
be my
maybe you're a
guess.
woman because you can't do construction. I don't know.
Maybe.
I was a woman who did construction, but I'm not real.
I'm trying to imagine Malik in the construction side. All right. Is there a society that is ruled by women, but all manual labor is done only by men, a patriarchy or matriarchy? Why all the focus on enforcement? Interesting question. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, so from my perspective, I'm sorry, Destiny, if you want to go first, you can.
Oh no, I didn't understand the question, so go ahead and answer it, and then I'll
Okay.
understand it even less.
Gotcha. I know it's all incoherent and debate bro-ish, but what he's asking is actually a good fundamental question. The reason that I focus on enforcement is because it's a baseline. So we're looking at a baseline for egalitarianism, and the question is asked, why can't men and women be equal? And we are looking at an enforcement differential, and that's why I think that they can't be. So even then, even if women were doing all of the manual labor, the enforcement would still, even if women were, the enforcement would still be male, so it would still be a patriarchy. I just don't think that there's a good way logically around that.
Okay. Someone said this: all construction, police, military, logging, and fishing, mining, blah 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 blah, is 90% men. Any thoughts on this?
Brave.
Men are better at it than women are.
Well, it is an
Brave
option
job.
of not only bravery, which is part of it, but the fact that they're actually physically structured to be able to do jobs like that, which women are not.
Okay, that super chat's just fucked.
What?
What?
I said the current super chat is just fucked.
In around 1960s, women used to dress like Nancy Sinatra. Plus, they can be literally killed for taking off the headscarf. Things can go back. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think things can go backwards. Okay. We made different delineations for men, but now all men just allow women to do something. It's crazy how these men that share ideology. Women will side with them, making the majority, and most likely win. I don't know if that's true, but yeah. Anyone have any thoughts on this?
We make different delineations for men now, but all men just allow women to do something. It's crazy how things. What?
That's written in a very.
I'm also confused by the super chat. Maybe it was just worded
I'm
poorly.
I think what
Just
he's
like
saying,
an opinion.
I think it is an opinion. I think what he's saying is that a lot of men will just always side with women because they're soy boys or PC or because they're trying to get laid, and therefore the female ideology will always win. I think that's
Based.
the point. Okay. Loneliness is at an all-time high. 60% of men are single. Most men don't have close friends. Men don't feel comfortable expressing vulnerability. The economy and education landscape has changed. Okay, that's a statement. Men's struggles, internal patriarchal standards typically don't allow that freedom of expression. Things hinder men in so many ways, which is the way in why patriarchy harms men. Yeah, I mean, I would say that there's other
I
things,
agree with that.
but I don't think it's the patriarchy that's harming men. Causing them to be single and depressed. But
I think he's saying that like men are the reason why men are being harmed.
Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of, well, I guess Mark Zuckerberg is a man. He invented Facebook. But yeah, I think it's technology, poor diet, lack of exercise, lack of purpose. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things. You all presume equality. What if men talking about emotion doesn't work the same as it does with women? In talk therapy, there's evidence it doesn't work as well on men. Could male expression just be different? Yeah, it's still therapy still works on men. It's just I have seen that study. It's like a little bit less effective for men than it is for women. But yeah,
clearly how they express themselves is different, and the way that they even have to physically interact with the world is different than women. There's significant differences, which I don't know why people pretend that they're not there, but they are there. And we just kind of like turn this blind eye to it, or many, at least progressives, seem to turn a blind eye to it. But the distinctions are there, and there's a reason that all these red pill influencers are going through the roof. And it's not because all of them are saying things which are correct, but it's because they're at least addressing this fact that hey, there's some serious distinctions, and we should probably acknowledge those.
I disagree. I think there are distinctions, but I don't think there are serious distinctions. And red pillars are absolutely not addressing any of these things. If all you needed in life, or if you think that some guy saying like go to the gym and like fucking do drop shipping is somehow like changing your life, I mean, I don't know. The idea that red pillars are addressing some fundamental thing in society and are providing some huge service, I disagree.
There's a million ways. Why do you think they're exploding in popularity?
Why do you think
because
the
they're
Kardashians
inspirational?
are billionaires? No, it's not because they're inspirational. It's because it's a guilty pleasure. Yeah, it's drama. It's funny to watch people shit on women. It's funny to watch
not all drama channels.
Hyper masculine fantasy. All of it is drama. Of course it is.
No, a lot of them are not drama channels.
I think it also says them being idolized too.
Who's popular that isn't a drama channel?
Yeah, in the red pill community.
As far as a red pillar goes, I would say that this largely is not a drama channel that we're on right now.
I'm not popular, man. I'm not.
And he's not a red pillar.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm talking about manosphere content.
But the top people are only in drama because of controversy.
Let me finish. I'm talking about manosphere content. I think that the reason it's exploded in popularity is because it is shining a limelight on some of these issues, divorce rates, single motherhood, things like this, which people definitely are gravitating towards. There's no doubt that that's true. Just like this is the pretend that I'm talking about. You just kind of shrug your shoulders and say, nobody cares. They do care. They significantly seem to care a lot about this issue.
Some people care, but
the space won't exist in 2 to 3 years because they're not helping.
I don't know about that either, but there's a reason why Fresh and Fit, curly things are way more popular than me. What do? I've been around longer than them. What do? They provide way more drama. It's way more entertaining. There's a lot of rage porn. I generally don't do that nearly as much, and therefore.
I think entertainment's always a factor with everything. I'm not disputing that, but there's still underlying issues here that the entertainer has to be pushing. And in this particular case, I think that these issues are definitely things that men are gravitating towards. They feel like they've gotten a bad shake. I can't really say that descriptively a lot of the red pill things are incorrect. I think that a lot of their solutions are bad. I would agree with Destiny on that. But descriptively, I think they nail a lot of things out of the park, and that's why they soar in popularity.
Yeah, I mean, depends on which thing we're talking about. I think they're dead wrong about some of the things. They literally treat a relationship like a transactional encounter where some like dude is going to break into the house every week and you have to like fight him off. And that's like the main value proposition. The girl contributes sex and women don't even like sex. So
I'm curious. Would you say that all of the crazy like feminist shit was also like all very true, and that's why it got so popular? So all the crazy Nicki Minaj songs or all the crazy Call Me Daddy podcasts, whatever these red pillars say, were those all factual and true, and that's why they got so popular?
No, but there's a distinction here. One was pushed, literally media pushed. The media pushed all feminist talking points. We can go over an entire overview of how they did so. In this particular case, these are counterclaims to a lot of those media push talking points. And I think that largely the whole red pill thing started underground. It definitely was not pushed by major media, and they
Tate
still
was
don't push
literally incredibly pushed by TikTok.
That's recent, and that's recent. And look what
And that's
happened
the-
to
that's
Tate
where- that's the
when
popularity.
the system fought back against Tate. They've arrested his ass. They threw him in prison, and he's probably going to spend the rest of his life in prison. So the thing is like, look, you can say this all you want, but there's distinctions between the two. Feminism has been pushed broadly for about 100 years. It started as kind of low-key before it really kicked off in the 60s, moving into the 70s, this type of thing. It has occult roots going all the way back to even the late 1700s. There's a great book written on this. It's called Occult Feminism by Rachel Wilson. You should read it, Destiny. It's good.
You're recommending me books by your wife? Thank you.
Why shouldn't I?
Why would I read what she has to say if she's a woman and you don't believe that women should even like fucking be educated? Like,
Oh, you mean the thing that earlier in the debate you asked if I believed in, and I said I did,
yeah,
and we already clarified. So now you're lying. So now you're lying again. How many times are you going to lie? I
My
wonder.
intuition. Well, that was just my intuition that you.
Well,
felt
your
like,
intuition was wrong.
Your intuition isn't my intuition is wrong, but you don't know that, right?
Well, no, I do have specific ways that I can make this knowledge claim that your intuition is wrong.
Oh, you
because
earlier
you went back and contradicted yourself.
No,
it's not retarded. It's smart.
Wait, claim both things that I contradicted myself on.
So the contradiction, the first thing was you said, Andrew, do you believe that women should be allowed to pursue higher education? I said, yes. Now you've brought it up a second time as though I didn't when you know that I did.
That's not true. Initially,
It
I
is
declared that you
true.
didn't believe it. Then my intuition believes the same thing still.
No, that's...
All right. Last super chat. Shout out to
It's
Michael.
not-
Can you address how off his intuition is right now, Andrew? Or I'm sorry, Alex.
I'm a moderator. I don't want to get involved in debate.
Okay.
Shout out to Michael Sartain showing up in a day in, day out, giving his personal time to help men improve their social lives. Okay. Yeah, Michael, you have a fan. Appreciate the super chat. Yeah. But anyway, those are all the super chats. I mean, like, me personally, when it comes to this debate, I kind of sometimes agreed a little bit more with Destiny. Sometimes I agreed more with Angela. On certain things, I sort of agreed with Andrew. So I'm kind of like in the middle between you guys. Okay, we have.
You just never agree with me. It's okay.
Damn.
Yeah, you're totally different when it comes to debates than what comes to speed dates. You're like hardcore, like right winging, Trump saluting, like fucking Malik.
Jeez.
But
I don't Trump salute, but maybe one day.
we got so Katie wanted to come on and I think debate Angela on a few things. You guys mind if I let her on?
I have to actually get rolling. So I'll just do an outro if you want me to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so my name is Andrew Wilson. I'm the host of The Crucible. Thank everybody on the panel for the spirited conversation. I don't hold any grudges for conversations like this. Never have. And appreciate all of your guys' time. You can find me there on YouTube. And with that, I'll get out of here. Have a great night.
Take it easy, buddy.
Good meeting you, Andrew.
Also, my wife's book is great, Destiny. You should read it.
All right. Andrew's wife has a good book. That's the takeaway. All right, let's bring on Katie. Yeah, so you want to talk about something with who? Angela?
Malik. I'm
Oh,
very
Malik,
upset
okay.
with you.
Oh, hey, Katie.
All right, guys, and we're out. We're out. Let me move over, and we will address all of the super chats. That was, well, that was just a lot of fun, I must admit. More fun than a human being should be allowed to have, but I was allowed to have it, right? It was brutal to the point, and the coping was unfucking believable. The coping, holy shit! All right, guys, let's move back to front here. I'm going to get to every one of your super chats. Thank you guys so much for the continued support. 5 days, never-ending content. We have lunatics on the internet, followed by another erudite trash talk extravaganza. And we have a team debate, 3 versus 3 Saturday, with Jim Bob, Posh, one other gentleman, going up against Synth and Vegan Games, and one other gentleman on that side too. Not going to spoil the surprise. I'm sure you guys will have a ton of fun with that. $20 comes in from Amptown. Amptown, thank you so much for being a longtime Crucible supporter. You're great. No message entered. Just wanted to show support for the stream. I appreciate that very much. $10 comes in from Excel. Says, dude, you are grounding those 2 Spurgies. LOL. That's the point. That's what we're trying to do. $10 comes in from Joseph. It says, does Destiny know how power lines are built? He doesn't know shit. I become less and less impressed with Destiny as we go, especially when he starts trying to meme the debate because he has no argument. But you can't meme because I'll just meme back, right? I'll just meme back. Fuck you. $10 comes in from Joseph, who says, I swear I'm not bragging. I don't care about the money. But as an apprentice lineman, I clear roughly 90%, or 90,000, sorry, 90,000 after taxes. Destiny's ignorance on trades is incredible, and I think he speaks for a lot of educated people. Listen, there's a big divide on this. I'm telling you. There's a big divide on this, and nobody ever fucking pushes back, okay? They don't push back. And that's what we're doing. We're building the coalition to push back. And we're pushing hard. $5 comes in from Anonymous. Sends in no message. Just want to show support for the stream. Hey, thanks a bunch. $20 comes in from Spyro Philopoulos, who says, $10 for Rolo and 10 for your time. And I'll be sending that. I'm going to DM Rolo. In fact, I'll DM him right now. We're going to repay our debts. Let me DM him. Ask him where he wants it. Okay? There I go. Where am I sending it? And I'll post the receipt. Okay? I'll post the receipt. He was right. Okay? I did use the word toxic masculinity to bring it out because I thought that was only fair. Right? But the second I mentioned it, they were all like, yeah, that's exactly it. And Destiny did say, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Rolo fucking called that shit. I'm telling you, he did. He just did. So I asked him, where am I sending it? I just sent him the DM. Rolo, if you're watching on Twitter, okay, the DM is there. I'll send you your $10. Plaque it on the fucking wall and put Rolo was right, Andrew was wrong. That's fair. Totally fair. $5 comes in from Anonymous. No message entered. He just wanted to show support for the channel. Hey, we appreciate that, Anonymous. Longtime supporter of the Crucible. Spyro already sent that in. $10 comes in from the Unconventional Man. It says, I love to see Andrew wreck Destiny, everything they debate. Yeah, it's getting more lopsided as we go. $5 from Spartan Up North. Destiny eats corn the long way. That's true. That's true. And you know what? It's funny. At this debate, I said, I'm going to be the most good faith I can possibly be to just try to deliver the best arguments I can. I don't want to get in the weeds with personal stuff, that kind of shit. You know what I mean? And I didn't. I stayed completely away from it. But if I do, then that's where he's going to go. You know what I mean? Then that's the next step for him. Is like, well, if I can't beat the argument, I'll just meme the debate. It's like, fuck you, dude. $5 comes in from, $10 comes in from Wilham Bones. No message entered by user. Long time supporter of the Crucible, Wilham Bones is. Great guy. Thank you so much for your support. We really, really appreciate it very much. I know that it seems like it's always mediocre to people. They send in $5 here, $10 there. Wilham Bones has almost consistently sent in $10 to $20 every single stream I've ever done to show support for the channel, and that means a lot. Like, I'm not going to forget that. You know what I mean? The funding is critical, right? Funding is critical for the Crucible, and without your guys' funding, we could not do this. We wouldn't be able to do it. So let me move over here to the YouTube side. Thank you guys all for the great dono chats. By the way, shout out to Spyro, who, by the way, I think is at 1,300 gifted memberships at this point. Can we crown up Spyro, who is doing his part and then some to take down the degenerate element in society and assist with the destruction of the maniacs and lunatics on the internet. Something great to be said there, right? Something great to be said for Spyro. Crowns in chat for him. Moving over to the YouTube side, guys. Let's do that real quick. No, she just said it's so stupid. You said that it's intuitive. Yeah, it is intuitive. There was no argument. Never an argument. There was never a single argument that they made. That's the crazy part. None of these people even know how to make arguments at this point. Like, I'm not even sure. Not even sure that they can make fucking arguments. Destiny used to make arguments. I don't know what happened, but I just feel like they don't. Feel like they don't even fucking make arguments anymore. They just like want to meme a debate or just not contend with something which is kind of obvious, you know. All right, going back, we need to start with Beaten Cheeks, who sent in a $300 super chat. Fucking amazing from Beaten Cheeks. $300, kicking the stream off even. Okay? Massive super chat. We appreciate that very much, man. Thank you for contributing to the fight. We need all of you. Like you can't imagine, we need everybody, not just some people. And he did an interview with me recently. He was very kind to me, and I really appreciate him continuing to support the channel. That's what we're here to do. Super chat comes in from Evan513, who says, no soup for you, Destiny. Super chat from Dave2P3 says, nothing, just want to support the channel. Appreciate that very much. Wicked Wally sends in a super chat and says, so if I build a giant robot and hold a monopoly on this tech, then decide to toss respect for all social constructs out the window because robot, now what? It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. Beaten Cheeks said in his big, massive $300 super chat, by the way, I pray for these debates. It was pointed out to me in the chat. Maybe I didn't read that. I feel like for $300, he deserves to have that read. Appreciate it very much. Mitch Murphy super chats in and says, I'm a plumber in Canada, and it took me 4 years to get the red seal here, get master. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I'm sure for other people it takes 7 to 8 years, depending on the region that they're in. I think that these people are very clueless as to how the world works. Very fucking clueless. Wicked Wally says, maybe this would make more sense to Destiny if he counted all the men his wife can't function. Oh, dude. It's fucked up. Wally, and hilarious. Another super chat comes in from Beaten Cheeks, who says, by the way, again, thank you for that massive, huge super chat. Really appreciate it, man. Very much. Very much. And he says, to Destiny about work jobs, I'm a GED, cybersecurity subject matter expert for 18 years. Does a 4-year graduate in cybersecurity deserve to get paid as much as me because they simply got a degree, but not as well versed? I turned down PhD candidate in cyber because they don't know anything in the field. Listen, I don't know what Destiny would say, but I can tell you the truth. The truth is that experience in any field and the ability to demonstrate you can do the job means more than anything else. There's very few fields where that's not true in, medical being one where the credential is completely necessary for liability purposes, but almost outside of that, you can basically do whatever the fuck you want. Literally, you can do whatever the fuck you want. As long as you can do the job. You know what I mean? As I've often said, I'm sure that there's some restrictions, because I'm an engineer by trade, where they would say, no, we require the college degree, but I haven't really run into any. It's crazy. Super chat comes in from KS and says, not even Destiny can compete against the Men in Force Foundation. The argument is undefeated, like Rocky Marciano. It's because it's true. It's just a truism. You know what I mean? And Destiny tried to catch me by saying, oh, would you say that the reason that all the feminist talking points got popular is due to the fact that they were true? And it's like, no, I think that you're conflating two different things, and I pointed this out. Super chat from Jordan Lofgren, who says, Destiny has disdain for blue-collar workers. Yes, he does. Shocker. What a haughty piece of shit. Without blue-collar workers, Destiny couldn't even be a streamer. Dude, listen. They all think of themselves as this above-you elite class of high IQ, super sophisticated people. But when their actual ideology is put to the question by one of the blue-collars like you, they don't seem to be able to do very much, do they? Okay. Spyro for $5 Canadian says, you didn't even finish reading my chat. Rolo doesn't win. I paid the bet. You never conceded. Andrew equals undefeated equals confirmed. Right. Okay. So Spyro pays the bet, which means I remain undefeated. It's all in good fun. You know what I mean? I did take the bet. And you pay your bets, right? That's the one thing the Irish are good at. We pay our bets. And a win is a win. Maybe you could say that I was charitable with the win, but I don't think so. I think that he called it, because when I brought up toxic masculinity, all of them were like, yeah. And I was like, fuck, this guy was actually right about that. Super chat comes in from Mitch Murphy, who says, this is driving me insane. I work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. It took me 4 years to become a Red Sea plumber in Canada, make about $100K a year. It's fucking crazy, dude. They really don't listen. These people don't understand anything, okay? You know, they've been too disconnected from society for too long. Too disconnected for too long. They don't have the intact they don't have any of this. Their understanding of actual reality, it's not there. You need to understand this. And you can make compelling arguments to show that and demonstrate that and fucking destroy these people's ideology, which is what we're here to do. Petrogard. He says, average IQ of a nurse, 110. Average IQ of an electrician is 110. No shock there. Spartan Up North says, these women think that women could fight for their rights, but they can't even speak up in this debate. Yeah, it's fucking, look. I've already told you what I think about, generally speaking, female debaters. I have not been very impressed for the most part. Okay? Haven't been very impressed for the most part. Super chat comes in from KS, who says, Angela's argument, okay, you're right, but men suck because I'm a baddie. Well, listen, her arguments were not good. And when I kind of pointed out, what would this look like? What would it look like if you were to give me the formula for how you would express this, other than through just sheer intuition of, this is what I see that men do, so therefore this is what I'm expressing that you ought to do because you're a man. They don't really have anything. They're just like, that's a stupid argument. I just gave you 2 examples that were anecdotal, and they were anecdotal, about how you could do A, B, and C. And it's like fucking crazy. Makes no sense. Derek G says, is it possible that 52-year-old lonely childless men just don't believe that asking for help and going to their PY will change the idea that their life is a failure and won't make things better? I think that there is a lot of truth to that. But I think that we need to admit first, Derek, that men and women aren't the fucking same. We're not interchangeable widgets, right? When I say that they're really far apart, Destiny's counter-argument is to say, no, they're actually way close together. I don't think they are. I think that the distinctions between the two are just wildly huge across the board. And so for us to fucking pretend that we're not going to even deal with something as simple as suicidality being like, get the job done, right? I think that that's absurd. And by the way, I demonstrated that it was absurd. We look at different cultures. This seems to be cross-cultural regardless of society, that men just seem to do this more. So Wicked Wally sends in another super chat. Thank you, Wicked Wally. He says, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man how to fish, he'll he'll bore the ever-living fuck out of you on the Outdoor Living channel. That's true. That shit is fucking boring. Pedregard says, why won't my bros help me like women? Destiny. Yeah, it's not a great argument. Miles says, enlightening debate. Wish you the best, Andrew. Hey, thank you very much, Miles. Appreciate the super chat and the support. Super chat comes in from Mud, who says, women don't want men to go into true survival mode. And this is what I talk about often, which is that because we do have that monopoly on force, and we're benevolent, we don't use it. But they don't want to see what would happen if we did. Men don't want to see that either. Like the whole point, the reason that I think that the manosphere is necessary is because it seems like they're trying to avoid that too. Okay, it seems like they're trying to avoid it a bit. Pirius says, speed of Destiny's speech equals weather vane of truth. Nodverse says, Destiny suffers from the gayness of low expectations. Godzilla 37 says, Destiny, the straw man destroyer. He'll never address the point, though. Total snake. I don't feel like he addressed very much, to be honest with you. I feel like he couldn't even repeat my argument back. But when he asked me to, I did repeat his argument back. Infinity Ryu says, Angela is desperately trying to save crying to your girlfriend when she would break up with him instantly. We have less incentive to cry, so they won't. Don't take advice Hunter Cry Alone suggests. Hunter Cry Alone's the best. It's the best shit ever. Hunter Cry Alone. Frankie D says, what I don't get is that every American institution has to spend billions of dollars on programs promoting women, and they have to brutally silence any resistance to handicapping men. Women's success should be natural if true. Yeah, well, here's the thing. It is natural to the degree that due to the progression of technology and men keeping the infrastructure up, that they are able to kind of take these kind of societal assistant jobs. But men could do those jobs and the infrastructure jobs. And again, that's the distinction. There are these huge distinctions. And the reason, the true equality there, if you want to look at it objectively, is that women can have children and men can't. So we don't even expect them to do those jobs. We're benevolent by nature. We want them to be happy and comfortable, to have the most amount of our children that they can. That's what we want. You know what I mean? Yukon Cornelius sends in a super chat, says nothing, just wanted to show support for the stream. Super chat comes in from Circle G. He says, Destiny's losing his edge. Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's other topics that he would be far better on. Wasn't this one. Super chat comes in from Marshall Forward. Another super chat. Thank you, Marshall. Who says, doing the Lord's work, Andrew. This night exemplifies you are the best. Hey, thanks, Marshall. I really appreciate that, man. Thanks for being a longtime supporter of the Crucible. Dejun AC says, Andrew is that NGGA. Okay. Dan510 sends in a super chat. Says, been a while. Glad you're back. Really enjoyed the destruction of Destiny. Hey, thanks a bunch for the super chat, Dan. I really appreciate it very much. Frankie D says, after billions of dollars, decades promoting women in the workplace, the only thing Americans have to show for it is more uncomfortable workplaces. I couldn't fucking agree with you more. Couldn't agree with you more. Spyro sends in a super chat, and he says, you didn't even finish reading my chat. I got to that. I'm sorry. Imperius says, F Spyro, he gets no thanks from me, LOL. Well, that's fair enough, Imperius. Mods, time Imperius out from the chat for hurting my sensitive and delicate feelings. Timed out, bitch. You're timed the fuck out. Me talking shit about Spyro. And it's not because Spyro is a heavy donor. That doesn't hurt anything. But Spyro is also actually extremely good at crafting arguments. And he's really, really fucking good at helping break down studies. And you're worthless at both of those, Imperius. Worthless at both. You're not good at crafting arguments. You're not good at breaking down studies. You're like Crucible dead weight that we tolerate. But you need to prove yourself to be the next scale up, bro. You do. Alex sends in a super chat. He says, thank you for decimating Destiny. His no understanding of the world. Bottom of the barrel men, he puts in quotes, do more important, valuable work than his spurging. Man. I must say, the bottom of the barrel comment was a little brutal. You know, I must admit, a little bit brutal from Destiny. Oh, the low IQ, dumb tradesmen who have the same exact IQ as your fucking stupid stem cell people do. Same IQ. Not even a single deviation. There's like an average between 114 and let's just say 120 is the average. You do a 120 to a 116 or a 114. Who cares? It's not even a deviation, really. That's basically the same intelligence. Super chat comes in from Richie J Audio. He says, Roosh V was a red pillar before it was a thing. He's now Orthodox. Successful pickup artist guys are pursuing the thread of truth. What is women's nature? Pursuit of truth often leads to truth. Well said, Richie. Crowns in chat for Richie. He also did a great job debating the other night. He was on my team. I thought he brought in very good points, and we appreciate it. And he was also, like, he took the brunt of some shit. I'll agree to that, but he did a good job overall. Super chat comes in from JD Trace 2. He says, Andrew has done more for the black community than Biden Obama has ever done. We're doing our part. The Crucible doesn't care. Service guarantees citizenship. GR just gifted a Crucible membership. Appreciate that very much. Alan Wiggs sends in £5. Says, Andrew, the new lighting and production value is looking good. Can we continue to expect more Crucible advancements? Of course. The super chats and the funding that you guys send, you can see from the very beginning of the Crucible to now, the quality has just increased. The bit quality has just increased. We'll be launching that series, backed by popular demand. I didn't realize it would be this popular, but of the drunken Irish Catholic Skanksorcist. That I will be doing more bits for the next Epic Trash Talk Extravaganza, which means now I got to start looking at equipment for actually making IRL bits, which I think are going to be 10 times more hilarious. All of this is funded by you. We do what we can to give back, like we did the pizza party the other day. I know that that's not a lot, but it is us trying to kind of show back to the community, hey, we really love you guys, and it's because of you guys that we're able to do everything that we can do. Everything from the new mic setups to setting other people up. Oftentimes I'll donate my old equipment to other streamers so that they have better equipment. That's what I'm doing with my my old PC. I'm going to donate that to a streamer because it really was top of the line, 10 years ago. But the chipset still plays modern games and everything else. It's actually a pretty good chipset. So, and there are people who need it. So we're going to do what we can to help as many people as we can, how we can. You know what I mean? But yeah, we're very much funded by you, the viewer. So we appreciate that very much. Hey, what's up, Virginia? Nice to see you in chat. Nice to see you back, Virginia Lou. You're just having too much fucking fun. Anyway, as we wind the stream down, guys, right, I'm going to do about 15 minutes of Q&A. I've always done this every chance that I get, so I want to make sure that I can address whatever questions you might have, criticisms, or whatever else. By the way, thank you so much for that gifted membership, which came in. And then this super chat, it's actually a membership chat, which came in and says, Destiny is just another guy who unfortunately never considered that an ought cannot be gotten from an is. There is an is-ought gap, I agree. I think you missed BM Duper Super. BM Duper Super? Let's see if what I missed here. Who did I miss? How did I miss somebody's super chat? I'm sorry, I don't actually see it. Like, I don't want to miss your super chat. If you did send in a super chat, you can put that. You can still put that in, and you don't even have to send it as a super chat. You can just put it in the chat. Did I miss somebody else's? American Nacho says I missed his too. Hang on. What the fuck? How am I missing these super chats? What the fuck is going on here? That's no good. Yeah, you're right. I did miss BM Duper. I do see it now. All three women in this debate are annoying, especially that Destiny chick. But that's my intuition. That's funny. My intuition too. All right. American Nacho says, he super chats it. He says this all important message. Jesus Christ is truth. There's no doubt that that's true. God the Almighty is truth. Jesus Christ is truth. There's no doubt that's true. Now, look, I'm not going to take up the credo because it is cringe to be like, Christ is king, right? I'm not going to do that. But I will always read what is true, which is that Jesus Christ is the truth and the way. So anyway, that said, thank you very much, American Nacho. I understand that not everybody in the audience is Christian. I get that. right? And I'm not here to preach to you. That's not what the purpose of the Crucible is. But I'm still going to read that and give my take because it's true. It's true. Sorry, it's true. So, anyway, Pure Blood Anglo sends in $10, and he gives the signal. Signal received, sir. Appreciate that very much. Prairie Muffin sends in $2, says, keep fighting. Thank you. Truth always wins. We're not going to stop. Crucible won't stop. We've had the odds stacked against us from the very beginning. We've been under fire from the very inception of the channel. And we have fought tooth and nail. 100%. Had to claw our way up 1 inch at a time. And it's largely due to you, the viewer. So we really appreciate that very much. What else is on your guys' minds? I'm here to answer whatever questions that you might have. Yeah, I mean, we're not going to stop. You know what I mean? Hey, Andrew, how'd it go, brother? Went fine. Glad to see you there in chat. Shame. But it went fine. Shame should carry a little bell around. Just shame. Shame. Andrew, do you like Red Bar Radio? I haven't really listened to very much Red Bar, to be honest with you. Is that a Kramer guitar at the Crucible? No, it's actually not. It's a Japanese make. They experimented with that particular brand for a while. And the neck is actually detachable. So you can detach the neck and put new necks on the guitar. It was an interesting concept ahead of its time, but it never really caught on. Just never really caught on. So, Andrew, what's your Twitter? At PaleoChristCon. PaleoChristCon. At PaleoChristCon. Ernest Harris says, oh, hope all is well, Andrew. It's all well, man. It's all well. Nothing to complain about. My wife is always good to me every day of my life. My kids absolutely adore me. I can't complain, right? Life is good. I mean, that's what matters at the end of the day is your family. And they seem to like me. I don't know how because I'm not a very likable person, but they seem to like me. Sir, why do you use 2 cameras from different angles? This one looks much better. So it's a restraint on the software, right? It's just a restraint on the software. And the way that I have the studio set up, I don't have to use an optional camera that often unless I go on different panels. So I haven't actually invested in doing that. But I'm streaming here, and I want to have one view here, and then I want to have the panel view. So I do agree with you that I need to do something about the cameras, but cameras are god-awful expensive, but I do need to do something for the second angle. So I think that that's a fair criticism, but that's why. And it does look way better because this is a much more high-quality camera and a much more, you know, the lighting is all done and everything is done, which is conducive to streaming. The backup cam's like this really cheap Logitech with grayscale coloring that looks like garbage. You know what I mean? I would prefer to have something which was much better for that second angle. JD Trace sends in $5, says, would you ever invest into or sign up incoming Christian influencer? Sign an up-and-coming Christian influencer? I don't know what you mean by sign. I don't know what that means. Would I ever invest into or sign an up-and-coming Christian influencer? I think that if this was a person who was doing damage in the culture war on our side, that I would absolutely support him, even regardless of his denomination, though I am Orthodox. I would still send support even to Protestants who I thought were having a great effect in the culture and introducing good arguments into the ethos. Absolutely, I would do that. And remember this, too. I understand that there's a lot of dogmatism in Orthodoxy, and I'm very dogmatic myself, but as I've pointed out before and will continue to point out, my best friends on planet Earth and most of my family are Protestants. I don't think that Protestants are evil people or not worthy of respect or that they don't do a great job with argumentation, things like this, because they do. So, yeah, there's that. Bring him into my OnlyFans. That's funny. I'll get right on that. Let me go start one. Which even if I did, nobody would ever want to go to it. So who would want to go to it? Andrew, can you outline what made you follow orthodoxy and what made you believe it or believe in it originally? I could, but I really don't want that to be, because that's a longer story. So maybe we can focus on that in a different stream, or you can DM me. So, hilarious tonight. Good show. Hey, I really appreciate it. Are we not men? No, I have friends too who are even Mormons, and friends who are Jehovah's Witnesses. I do. And I don't think that they're bad people. Okay? I don't think that they're bad people just because they're that. I just think that they're wrong. I think they're wrong. You know? Spyro Floropoulos sends in 20 Canadian dollars. Says, you're forced to watch Destiny stream for 10 seconds, but you'll get 10 billion at the end. Do you let yourself get eaten alive by rabid raccoons with rabies, or do you cut your own heart out with a spoon? I'm taking the raccoons with rabies. I feel like that's how a man goes out, you know? Andrew, how'd you get into philosophy? I don't know that I would consider myself into philosophy, or if that's just part of what I do. Nor do I consider myself some great philosopher. I think that in argumentation for debate, I do pretty well. And I think that when I try to utilize that as portion of a deconstruction for the opponent's worldview especially, but I can defend mine very competently, and I don't think that's seen that often, and it needs to be seen more. So I'd ask for a cooking stream, but I think we just saw one. Yeah, if you want a cooking stream, it's just going to be like BPF goes and orders Carl's Jr. That's what it's going to be. You know what I mean? I go order Carl's Jr. Andrew, do you like the 1990 TMNT movies? That's a great question. I like the first one because when I was a kid and watched it and I saw Raphael scream damn at the top of his lungs and the turtles were swearing while they beat the shit out of people, I thought that was pretty fucking cool, I must admit. Andrew, are you a Mortal Kombat fan? It's okay. It's an okay fighting game. You know, it was part of the fabric of my youth, though. Mortal Kombat on the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo. So, you know, like finish him and fatality and all that shit. You know, that's still going to be part of my lingo probably till the day I die, right? The first one is dark. I thought the first one was good. I even thought the suits looked the best in the first one, even better than, you know, kind of the modern ones. So, Alan Wiggs sends in 10 pounds, and he says, Andrew, I've asked this question before, but I'll ask it again after tonight's stream. Is Destiny still the best person you've debated online? Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think so. If I take it all into account, yeah, I think he is. He's at least the one I have the most fun with, and I think he has better arguments than most of them. So I still think yes. I think I've debated with other people who have been better debaters for singular debates, but I think overall I'd still probably mark Destiny up there, yeah. These days he's kind of weak. Well, I mean, he just seems to want to focus on memeing instead of debating, so. Someone made a documentary about where the turtle suits ended up. Didn't end well. Of course they did. People make documentaries about anything. So, anyway. So, yeah. I'm going to think about that question for the next time you ask it, Alan. I am. I'm going to think about it for a while. Destiny is too focusing on the cooming and coonsming. I'd argue Synth is up there with Destiny. Yeah, Synth is an excellent debater. I've never disputed that. I've always thought he was excellent, and I'm always going to think he's excellent, which is why I ask him to come back to the Crucible quite a bit. He's always had great respect for the platform, and in fact, I would say that he was very helpful in getting the platform off the ground as a debate channel. Though he disagrees with us, we've always treated him with respect. He's always been good back to us, so. Think we'll ever get a Project Zomboid stream? Yes, you will. I promise. And Andrew, so essentially in the short term, you want a representative democracy, but in the long term, a monarchy. I think that one could be done as well as the other. So I'm not going to make the kind of bold claim that this is what I want, or even that I want a limited democracy. Though in that case, I do. I do actually want a limited democracy. I want to at least move towards some kind of better authoritarianism where the buck stops with the authority. I would like to actually see people held responsible for the things that they do. And right now they're not. They're really not held responsible at all for the things that they do. We all know that our politicians are above the law, and all these fuckers run around coping and pretending like they're not, but they are. They're above the fucking law. And that's the truth. And that's bullshit. And I think stakeholder democracy can do something about that. So, and I'm willing to have debates on that and arguments about that as well, because it's ridiculous. So, okay. But I'm just so sick of fucking people walking around pretending that our politicians aren't above the law. Like we don't fucking know that they are. Of course they are. You know, these motherfuckers get away with the same shit Trump did times 20 and then pretend Trump is a villain. It's fucking bullshit. It is. It's bullshit. I'm sorry. It's just bullshit. Spyro sends in $5 Canadian, says, I want to throw some wholesome content into the mix. Andrew, what's the best part of being a dad? The cookies. The cookies. So my daughters, as part of their curriculum, they learn baking, which I think is a very useful skill. And I get to sample all of the cookies, right? I get to sample every cookie that is made, and haven't eaten a bad one yet. They're always fucking delicious. But the thing is it's the look when they give you the cookie, right? The approval look, which is like, do you like them? And they're waiting, right? So what I'll do is I'll drag it out because I'm a dick. You know what I mean? I'll be like, yeah, I don't know, you know what I mean? Just drag it out while they're like on the edge of their seat. You know what I mean? Like, what's he gonna say? And then I always say the same exact thing every single time, which is like, this is fucking awful. Now give me another one. Right? It's fucking terrible. But give me another one anyway. You know, give me another one anyway. I guess somehow I'll be able to get through all of this cookie eating somehow. That's usually how it goes, right? But I think you could kind of extrapolate that from that, you know, like the relationship that you have, especially with fathers and daughters, is nothing that's replaceable. You know what I mean? Nothing that's replaceable. And they, especially little girls, really need their dad in their life. Little boys do too. Don't get me wrong. And they just need them in very different ways. You know what I mean? But I think that women don't even really know how to have healthy relationships with men unless they have a competent man who raises them, actually cares about them, loves them, and also shows them that, you know, ribbing you a little bit is okay, you know, and kind of being a little bit mean to you in a joking way, that's okay, that's not abusive, that's not horrific. You know what I mean? I think that that's part of kind of the natural way that women understand the dynamics of men too, where they think that those things are okay. And I think that it's all just going by the wayside and it's missing. You know what I mean? So that's what I think. Anyway, we're almost wrapped out here, guys. Did you have any other questions? We got about, let's see, it's 11:10. We'll wrap it up at 11:15. Did you have any other questions for me from the chat? You don't even have to send in a super chat, though I do appreciate them, and I appreciate the donations to the stream. Let me pop over on Dono Chat real quick, just make sure I didn't miss anything there. And, of course, I missed some shit there. $20 came in from Spyro Florpro. Came in from fucking Spyro, okay? And he says, I just want to put you over the goal tonight. You earned it. Hey, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. Really do. Like the help has been extraordinary, and you can see the results of it. So we really appreciate everybody who super chats, and special thanks to Spyro, of course. Andrew, what's your favorite food? Mine is blood sausage, says Hillary Clinton. That's a timeout, Hillary Clinton. Mods timeout, Hillary Clinton. Blood sausage. Why don't you just tell me like black licorice? You know? Why didn't you just say that you're from Eastern Europe without saying you were from Eastern Europe? You know what I mean? Why didn't you just say that? Fucking peasant blood sausage. Ugh. Just black licorice and blood sausage. Ah. My favorite food, I think, you know, it's actually a stupid basic answer, honestly. But I think my favorite food, if I had to like chop it up to my favorite thing that I like to eat more than anything else, along with my favorite dessert, I think the dessert would be cheesecake, for sure. A good cheesecake, like, you know, the type of cheesecake where you take a bite and it's so rich, you don't even know if you can have another bite because you're high, right? You like take that first bite of the cheesecake and you're almost stoned because of how rich it is. I like those cheesecakes. And then, you know, the kind of the basic food I really like, probably more than anything, is just good old-fashioned pizza. You know, I really like pizza a lot. That's got to be... and I know it's like junk food or whatever, but like a really good pizza, they're fucking just great. You know what I mean? Daniel Flores says, are you looking for graphic designers or illustrators for merch at the Crucible? You can always DM me and pitch me whatever idea you have, and I'm happy to entertain it. So, some Italian in that Orthodox. Bear cult going wild right now with the pizza. It's all intentional. It's all intentional. It's funny. I have a comment. Destiny spurred about construction because he never got past laborer. Yeah, dude, again, the Destiny cope tonight was unfucking believable. So, I mean, it was massive cope, and it's always massive cope with this guy. I don't even know what to say about it now. But the last two panels I've been on with him, all he did was fucking cope the whole panel and act like an asshole and pretend he didn't understand the argument that I was making, and then I would reform it and even articulate it better the second time. And then instead of responding to it, he would just kind of go off on his Destiny tangent. It was really fucking... It's very cringe behavior, not what I'm used to from dealing with him. But maybe that's just the way he wants the relationship to be from now on, is like, if I'm ever debating with Andrew, no sense in making arguments because he'll understand those. Instead, we meme. Instead, we meme and say bizarre shit like, oh, it's the stupidest thing I ever heard that you say intuition. It's like, no, I don't think it is. And I don't think you gave me an argument for why. I think it was a great argument, and that you probably should contend with it, because I think the argument towards me was stupid, to be honest. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, from all of us here at the Crucible, to all of you out there in Crucible land, have a wonderful night.